Own the road with T-Mobile, the leader in 5G. Whether you're cruising through Nashville on I-40, heading down I-90 to Boston, or touring Santa Cruz in the 5, you'll be covered by the largest 5G network. T-Mobile covers the most interstate highway miles in America with 5G.
See 5G device coverage and access details at T-Mobile.com. Most reliable according to independent third-party Umlaut from crowdsourced user experience data from January to July 2021. Fastest according to Open Signal Awards based on average speeds in USA. 5G user experience report July 2021.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Welcome back, everybody, to Wrestling Omakase. It is episode number 229. This week, I am very pleased to be joined by a returning guest. Hello, Chris Samsa.
Hello. I am happy to be here.
So, Chris, of course, you had a big weekend, but I think what the people really want to hear about is the biggest live event that either of us were at this weekend, which, of course, was the Toronto Blue Jays defeating the New York Yankees at Yankee Stadium today on Labor Day, which I was at. So that's the biggest live event either of us went to this weekend, I think.
I don't know sure it was in the largest stadium.
It actually was. That's true,
in turn, it is the biggest.
They did outdraw it. They did outdraw All Out. You can't. They had a good crowd. So a lot of Yankee fans showed up to watch them lose 8-0 to my Blue Jays. So
there you go.
It was quite the game. It's one of those games that wasn't as lopsided as the score sounds, because it was 3-0 all the way to the top of the ninth, and then the Yankees, I guess, had no one left to pitch. So they put out this dude they called up from AAA who's just fucking terrible, apparently, because his last outing, I think, for the Yankees was like July 22nd, and I think I read he had 4 wild pitches. So not what you want if you're not a baseball fan, and the opposite of what you want. And then he went out today, gave up a solo homer, walked the bases loaded, and then gave up a grand slam. So all in one, it's like about as bad a job you could do out of the bullpen as possible. So
it is a little odd for the Yankees to have kind of, I don't know, I guess punted at that point, because they are right in the thick of the wild card chase.
Yo, they're half a game up on the Red Sox, but more importantly, they are exactly 4 games ahead of the Blue Jays.
Yeah,
who are trying to catch them, and this is a 4-game series.
And so the Blue Jays have won a bunch of games in a row.
8 of 9, I think. So
okay.
if the Jays win this, if the Jays sweep them, they have caught them for this wild card spot. So yeah, I was very confused. I mean, I know they have a million injuries in their bullpen. That my friends are Yankee fans. Or my girlfriend too, a Yankees fan, so I'm the only Blue Jays fan there. They were telling me, oh yeah, this guy's injured, this guy just pitched like 6 games in a row or something. So it's like, I guess this was like literally the last man they had available or something, is who they had to stick out there. And he sure sucked. He was not a very good pitcher. So that's what happened. The Blue Jays defeated the Yankees 8-0. Nicole got to boo. That's her favorite thing.
There you go.
She got to do some booing. There was one time, I'm talking about you just as you're coming out of the shower. There was one time we were at like a Blue Jays Yankees doubleheader, and it like started raining on us, so we were there forever. And the Jays, I think, just started pounding the Yankees in that second game, and the people all got so angry. They just started booing very loudly, and Nicole was very, very excited to just like let it rip and just boo as loud as she possibly could. It's a great baseball memory for the two of us, honestly. But today was not that level. She just got to do some light booing. But it was very funny in the top of the ninth watching after that grand slam, just watching people, stream for the exits like there was a bomb that just went off or something. I mean,
like that time that guy who won the ladder match at MSG.
Oh, yeah. Yes, Nicole was there when Marty.
That's what it looked like.
When Jay Lethal won the ladder match with a man who has since been canceled, who was the crowd's favorite, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, he deserves to be canceled. Marty Scurll, when Jay Lethal won that. Oh no, Matt Taven won. Matt Taven won. And yeah, people just like stormed out of MSG. They were so angry. I mean, a lot of them came back for the main event. Like a lot of them just seemed like they had to get away from these seats, and they were so disgusted. So I don't know if they went to the bathroom or concessions or what, but they just like this one guy yanked his kid so hard, I thought he was gonna pull his arm out of his socket. So I'm like, buddy, it's not worth like injuring your child here. Come on. But it was these people were not happy with Matt Taven. Not fans of Madison Square Taven. But he still wrestles, right? I have not seen a single second of Ring of Honor.
Same. I mean, he's not a name. He's certainly not at the top of the card anymore.
Matt Taven cage match. Let's see.
I'm sure he's. I don't know. A lot of people.
His last match was August 21st of this year. So there you go. Cage match.
So he's going.
He was defeated at Glory by Honor by Vincent. I think we used to be his partner or whatever. So
sure.
His team with Mike Bennett is now called the OGK, which I have no idea what that stands for. I assume the OG.
The OG something? Kingdom.
Oh, haha.
Yeah.
The OG Kingdom. Because there was the other kingdom.
Right.
Everybody loves the kingdom. Former kingdom member, Adam Cole, did make a big debut
there you go.
this weekend.
It's coming full
circle. Was in the kingdom. Yep. He was in the kingdom, wasn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember. Who the fuck was it? It was like Cole. Just searching Kingdom's not going to help me. Kingdom ROH. I want to just search the OGK. Yes, I got that. But who was in the Kingdom? Yes, former members: Adam Cole, TK O'Ryan, Matt Hardy. Excuse me,
Matt Hardy. That must have been his tiny Ring of Honor run.
Matt Hardy was in the Kingdom. And Vinny Margisello. Okay, that was that guy that Matt Taven brought in as like the new partner. So it was Adam Cole's Kingdom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But,
good.
The Kingdom. Maybe AEW will bring that back. They'll bring Matt Taven in.
You know, they like the units. They like the factions. So maybe they could have a run.
Bring back the Kingdom. I have to admit, there were people pushing on Twitter when news broke that Adam Cole was leaving WWE and probably going to AEW. There were people pushing on Twitter for Tony Khan to go out and get the Adam Cole Ring of Honor theme, which I have to admit I
sure. Oh, that was a great theme. Yeah.
I've got something for you, as it is. But instead we got a generic theme. And we did not get Final Countdown either. We got really, it was the only bad thing about that show closing angle. I mean, I guess we're going to talk about it in 2 seconds anyway. But with a theme song. I mean, both those theme songs. The Adam Cole, I rewatched the end because I was like, okay, I don't remember the Adam Cole theme song at all. And, I just rewatched I wanted to see the segment again in general, obviously. And I rewatched the end of that show, and that music hits, and I'm just like, I don't remember this theme song at all because it's like possibly the most generic theme song I've ever heard. I mean,
I don't know. AEW's got a lot of generic theme songs. This one was like a little, like a touch less generic because at least there's I think there's vocals if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it's like, that Adam Cole.
So
I don't know.
Most of them are just super generic, like bad rock, Fozzy-ish songs, and they're just like on dark all the time. Whereas the Adam Cole one, I felt like I don't know. I went and rewatched it again. I was in the building, so I went and rewatched pretty much the whole show today, and I did find that one was like fine, right? Like I was like, yeah, it fits kind of slimy looking Adam Cole, and then the Brian Danielson one was kind of like All you really need is the beginning, and you can do whatever you want with it for this purpose. But I don't know how I'll feel about it as it goes on.
It's pretty horrible. I mean, it like you get the start obviously, and then it's just like like it sounds like a fucking dance song. I'm just like I don't think of the American Dragon Bryan Danielson and like a random like generic club song. The two things don't have much to do with each other to me.
Sure.
It's a very, very weird choice for a theme song. Now, I know that Bryan Danielson has brought up getting the Final Countdown rights even when he was in WWE. And I remember reading that Europe wanted some insane amount of money for this. Like they wanted I think hundreds of thousands of dollars every time the song is played.
Yeah, so
obviously that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
so,
Lenny Leonard posted something on Twitter about when he was in Ring of Honor and they wanted to use it, and they literally wanted $50,000 every time it was used.
Yeah,
for pay-per-view. I don't know what that looks like for broadcast. It's probably about the same though.
So yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Maybe it was actually Ring of Honor, but they wanted a lot of money for that song. So it's not going to happen. I mean, AEW's been doing a great job licensing theme songs lately, so I was like hopeful. I'm like maybe he can make it happen. But yeah, even Tony Khan's not paying $50K every time he wants to play Bryan Danielson.
I do think, given the audience right now, though, using Flight of Valkyries?
Yeah.
Using that bit for this instance was most impactful.
Yeah.
I think, because it's just obvious. Everyone knew who it was. Everyone in the building immediately knew. And, obviously people in the building had a clue of what might happen. But as soon as that hit, I mean, the building blew up.
Yeah. So that's a theme song chat, I guess, before we get into the actual show. But yeah, it's a pretty terrible theme song, but, nobody cares. I mean, it's Bryan Danielson in an actual wrestling company, Everybody's very happy.
He's there to wrestle, so he says.
He's there to wrestle. So let's get right into All Out, I guess. Why not? Let's start at the main event and work our way down here. So this show, I mean, my overall thoughts on the show, this definitely was the best AEW pay-per-view of all time. I really don't think there's any question. Like, Joe Lanza was talking about it on the Voice of Wrestling flagship this past week. Like, this is a company, even in other periods where, the company was doing really well on television. Like, okay, a great example. I really enjoyed the TV leading up to Revolution, which is a show you and I reviewed, I think. And the Revolution pay-per-view was pretty bad. I mean, that was such a letdown for the TV that led up to it. I mean, the TV that led up to it was, up until this past summer, like probably the best period of AEW TV, the most I've enjoyed AEW TV at that point. So I was actually, I was watching Dynamite every week. I was really into it. And then that pay-per-view happened, and it was just like, literally every single match had outside interference of some kind. Obviously, the show closing angle was a complete dud with the terrible explosion. It was like cluttered with like a battle royal and a tag team gauntlet and a multi-way ladder match, I think, all on the same show, which they very wisely avoided that on this show. And, it just felt like a total drag of a pay-per-view, just a pretty bad pay-per-view. So that, it killed my interest in the company again for a while. I mean, I didn't watch Dynamite again for, quite a few months. And then I got back into it, obviously after the Saturday night shows were over, when they were back in their normal time slot. And yes, I think everybody pretty much agrees the current run of TV was great. But, coming until this show, I don't think they ever had a true, fantastic AAA blow-away pay-per-view. Clearly they had it now. And I'm saying that as somebody who is probably a little lower on some of these matches, for a match quality standpoint than, some people are going to be. But I still think, and the show definitely peaked in the first half for me, at least. I think, if people really liked a few of the matches towards the end more than I did, I could see them, disagreeing with that. But even with that said, this is not a quote unquote match quality promotion to me. This is a angle promotion. It's a promo promotion. It's an excitement promotion, which nobody else in wrestling really can match that right now. The excitement, especially, and some of it is obviously for no fault of their own. When you have Japan, the entire island of Japan under these clap card restrictions, you're not going to be able to generate much excitement, obviously. And we have a lot to talk about when it comes to that a little bit later. But when it comes to like what I'm looking for out of AEW, hot debuts, hot angles, exciting moments. I mean, this show delivered. And on top of that, it had better match quality than I'm used to seeing from this promotion, even though it's still not, the in-ring style of the company and the actual match quality of the company is still not like my favorite promotion from that standpoint. But this was a lot better than many of the pay-per-views. And they did, they really held the outside bullshit to a minimum compared to a lot of other shows. I mean, there was still some of it, which we'll get into. And I still think the finishes are possibly the worst part of this promotion. But compared to that Revolution show, I mean, it's not even comparable. So, any quick big picture thoughts?
Yeah, my big picture thought is really like you give me 7 singles matches, one steel cage tag match and a battle royal to split it up a little bit. And that's probably going to be a pretty good show in my eyes because anytime you've got a good hot singles match that's well built is awesome. And then the tag match was built. I mean, if I'm looking at the booking, right, how did we get here? The tag match, I don't love the like tag team eliminator thing. Like I feel like they wanted the match to be Penta and Phoenix against the Young Bucks. They wanted to do it in the cage. Like that was the end result that they were going to get to. And they had to like basically have the Young Bucks just like, a firing squad, like take down some of the tag teams that have already been built up while the Lucha Brothers were like, I don't know, living on dark. And like they hadn't been doing much, at least not much in the, front of mind. Now, I just feel like they could have gotten to that match better. I'm glad they got to that match because it was awesome. It was great. And then the Battle Royal, I mean, that was supposed to be the pre-show. I'm glad it ended up on the real show. Because
it did really good for a Battle Royal. That was great.
It was great. It was well booked. It was well put together. And I think that it was, 22 minutes maybe? Like,
yeah.
It was, and it ended with a great debut. Somebody debuting and winning, which I think is also cool. I
mean, I'm not saying I'm happy there was no Pac Andrade, but I definitely do think. I mean, that felt like a match that deserved to be on the main show. And it also, I mean, people are going to say whatever they're going to say anyway. And now they're saying, "Oh, this wasn't even supposed to be on the main show." But it kind of, shuts up some of the people who are like, "Oh, they only have one women's match."
Sure. Well, I guess that's it is a reasonable complaint when it comes down to it, but. I mean, that Battle Royal, the way it was booked and how it ended and who was in it, honestly, when I look at the list and the talent roster, like that feels like a real pay-per-view match. And maybe open the pay-per-view with it because it was supposed to be the pre-show, but instead they kind of used it as a splitter where you kind of have two, 4 match ends of this show that the first 4 matches were a little more kind of what I would consider like kind of classic AEW style in ring. And then the last 4 were more like story matches with Jericho MJF and CM Punk Darby. Then you got Paul White and QT as kind of a time filler. And then Omega Christian, like kind of a blend, but ultimately a pretty good main event. So yeah, overall, great show. I really loved being in the building for it. The building was hot. But honestly, like the more singles matches you put on a show, the better you're building your feuds, I think.
I mean, I hope they learn. I don't want to say learn a lesson, but I hope they take this forward, basically. And like, we don't need cards with a battle royal and a multi-way ladder match and a tag team gauntlet.
Right.
And that's ridiculous. We need cards with more singles matches, and the card will almost always be better when you do that. So, I mean, it's okay to have like one 3-way or one battle royal or whatever, but like, these cards that they were doing where it felt like they were trying to get every single wrestler on the show. It's just, it just doesn't work. I mean, this card felt like a big card because they had these guys, in these singles matches, and it felt like, a more of a traditional pay-per-view card. So, I mean, and look, really kind of helped a lot of their issues with because the pay-per-views have been the biggest weak point with this company up until now.
Because it felt like they didn't want to blow things off. And now we finally got this one big card where they blew everything off, and I hope the praise reaches the right ears. I'm sure it will. Right. And like, honestly, if I'm looking at it though, like Pac and Andrade not being on the pay-per-view, that's a TV level feud anyway. That's to true. Me. Like there's no title at stake. There's nothing, you kind of want that match to go 15 to, maybe 16 to 18 minutes. Right. And like, maybe it's got to roll through a commercial break, but like that does feel like a TV blow off anyway. And instead, I guess maybe you're replacing that with Moxley and Kojima and like a special match, which is just kind of fun, right? Like, but that doesn't have to go forever, and it doesn't have to really mean much. So I think the card construction ended up as perfect as it could be.
So let's start with the main event, which was Kenny Omega defeating Christian Cage in 21-19 to retain the AEW World Title. There were some issues I had with this match. First of all, the build for this did not at all match the actual match we got here. I mean, that's my biggest issue with this match. If you watch the build of this, Kenny Omega spent the entire... I mean, first of all, he lost to Christian already. Second of all, he then spent almost all this build running from Christian, like he's to the degree where it looked like he was a honky tonk man at times. I mean, that last tag match on Rampage, where it was like Kenny and Brandon Cutler against Christian and somebody, I don't even remember who the fuck Christian's partner was. I don't know.
I don't remember.
Christian and a person. It doesn't really matter. Kenny spent the entire match running from Christian. That's all he did was run from Christian and let Brandon Cutler get killed. And, that's how they booked this entire thing. They booked Kenny as a total coward. And then they did this match, and Kenny just destroyed him. I mean, he beat the shit out of him. The heat segment went on forever. It wasn't a bad heat segment per se. It did definitely not, the crowd. I don't know how you guys felt in the building, but on TV, it felt like the crowd was so burnt out when this match started. And, just really were not reacting to much of anything. It was like borderline WWE crowd level. I mean, it took forever for them to get into this match, which, does not happen that often in AEW. But like, after everything they saw by this point, I think that, wasn't their fault. I think the work was pretty solid, but the match layout didn't make a lot of sense via the build, given what the build was. So maybe that, maybe that didn't help. And, on top of that, I heard from people in the building that, not you, obviously, you can tell me your thoughts in a second, but I heard from some other people in the building that it was a very pro Kenny crowd, and the crowd both weren't really rooting for Christian, but also weren't really, probably didn't even think he had any chance of winning. And so I think that hurt the heat for it too, when Kenny is like the guy they want to win is just destroying him for this entire match, basically. I mean, this heat segment really went on forever. And, Christian just did not get a lot of offense. So it's like the guy you want to win is just destroying the other guy, when the match is obviously designed to get sympathy for the other guy, and the crowd's just not buying on that at all. So I think that hurt it. And the other thing that I think could have hurt it too was, people heard the rumors about Bryan Danielson and about Adam Cole. And I honestly believe there was some level of, okay, this went on last instead of CM Punk, in his hometown in his return match. I think there was another good reason for that not to go on last, which we'll get to. So we kind of think there's something going on. Like, I think there was a degree of like, okay, this has to be going on last because somebody big is coming out at the end. And the being two big people, of course. But I think there was that element of like, because I felt it even at home, where you're watching this, you're like, okay, this is fine, this is good, but I really want to see who's going to come out. So I think that may have snuck into people's reactions and helped explain why the crowd was, a crowd that had been great for most of the night was like so dead here.
Yeah, so I think for me personally, the thing that takes me out of a match is when I'm like 99% sure of who's going to win. So, and that's not to say I was taken out of this match, because like I was pretty engaged in the whole show, but there was a sense of exhaustion in the crowd, even honestly during Jericho MJF, because that was the other match that you were sure who was going to win.
Yeah.
Right. And they played with that a little bit, which we'll get to as we go back, back through the card. And I think that was good. That actually brought some life back into the crowd. Then you get the CM Punk match, similarly exhausting. And then you really come down, so it was clear who was going to win this match. Like, Christian Cage is not the guy who's going to take the AEW World Title off of Kenny Omega right now, ever, probably, but definitely not right now. So that created a challenge for them to get people invested in Christian. Now, I liked the match as a whole, especially after going back and rewatching it. And, I watched it pretty closely while I was there too. And I think the match construction was good for what it is. I mean,
I don't think it was good though for the build and for what people expected going in.
Sure,
Yeah.
but I don't know what else you do with those two guys, honestly. Like,
well, I thought the Rampage one, they had a back and forth match is what I think people were expecting here, and
I think that they got.
I guess the idea may have been that Kenny needs to look really strong when he's about to face Bryan Danielson, which I get.
Sure. I think there's a little bit of it that is a little overbooked with the table stuff. A little bit too cute with trying to keep Christian strong, even though he's not going to get back into this picture.
I don't think they kept Christian strong at all.
No, but I mean,
he
speared him through the table. You know, he speared Kenny through the table. There was
like a little bit of interference at the end, I will say.
He was getting creative with the whole I want to do the kill switch off the top rope thing, and like they gave him enough that it felt like they didn't want to bury the guy.
Yeah, I felt like
when they probably should have killed. I felt like they didn't, and I feel like they should have.
I feel like they killed him to a degree because he looked like, I mean, Kenny destroyed him for so much of this match that I was like, is Christian going to win this? I just was like thinking, like, what the fuck are they doing? Maybe that was the idea.
Maybe, yeah.
To try to trick you, like Christian's going to win because Kenny's just destroying him for so long. Because Christian basically had no offense until he finally speared Kenny off that apron through the table. But, you know, you're talking like that was already pretty late in the match.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Kenny just, like, the Kenny heat segment went on forever. The landing on the table, I don't know if you could see that from where you were, but it was pretty bad. Like they landed.
Yeah, they missed kind of.
Yeah, they didn't hit the middle of the table. They hit the leg of the table and, you know, the edge of the table, and that leg looked like it nailed them both. I mean, that looked like it sucked.
Yeah, and when they had that table set up,
not that it sucked to watch. I mean, it sucked for them.
When they had that table set up, I was looking at it like that's not. It's set up on it was set up on a weird angle. Like it wasn't set up straight one way or the other. It was set up like where they were like, this is about where we're going to land if you spear me off the apron. And like, I guess that's a tough thing to gauge if you don't, you know, kind of map it out. Plus that other table was still sitting out there. The table that they did the double foot stomp with.
Yeah.
So like also somebody rolled over onto that, which probably was not fun, but, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I don't think the crowd had any. It was a pro Kenny crowd. I will say that. So that's the truth. And there was just no belief that Christian was going to win, even though he won the match for the Impact title. But I think that, you know, people are smart. They know that means less than the AEW title. So you're not going to run that surprise back, you know, 2 times in a row.
Before I realize I have to plug the Patreon, so I guess I will do that in a second before we keep going on the show. But yeah, so the match, you know, we do get a little bit of interference at the end where Gallows and Anderson ran down. They kind of collided with Kenny, so that kind of backfired, and Christian got the kill switch, but he didn't hook the leg, and you figured even if he was going to win, he was not going to win on one kill switch, so I didn't really think much of that near fall. But then Don Callis like got in the ring to distract Christian. I thought that was kind of stupid. It's like why are you just like getting in the ring? It's just a little weird. Very very like Dick Togo-esque, I have to say, for the amount of complaining. I mean, we'll get to that later, but this is not that much different than what Dick Togo and Evil do that everybody hates. So I just want to say that right off the bat here. But yes, Don Callis gets in the ring, distracts Christian. While Christian setting Kenny up on the top rope, and that gives Kenny time to recover and rake Christian's eyes and hit the Avalanche style one winged angel, which I gave them a quarter star for that because that was an amazing move, and that was the pin. You know, I didn't love the Rampage match as much as some people, but I think it was definitely better than this one. I mean, this wasn't like bad or anything, but it was just like the Kenny heat segment to me went on so long, the crowd was like so dead for it, and just. You know, the match made no sense, like I said earlier, for the build they did. And, you know, it makes sense from a perspective of like, you know, Kenny should be killing Christian, I think. But, you know, just after all that build of like Kenny being scared of Christian and he lost to Christian before and all that, he just killed him. I mean, it just was very bizarre. But I went 3 1/4. It was pretty good. You know, I didn't like hate it or anything, but it definitely was a bit of a letdown as far as the main event goes. So what are you going to do?
I also wonder why does Christian need an Avalanche one-winged angel to be put away when
I I thought that was just to look cool.
Yeah, it's just like a cool thing. Maybe it gives
Yeah.
him more time to actually take that bump in a way he can with his neck and back stuff.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, maybe.
truthfully, like I had that thought. I was like, oh, maybe he needed the extra space to like take a flat bump as opposed to like, you know, like a kind of a crunchy bump. So,
Right.
I did have that thought, but I also I was like, why is he the guy that gets the one off the rope when still nobody's kicking out of this move anyway?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I mean, I did think it kind of made sense in the context of the match because it wasn't like Kenny set it up for that way. It just kind of
happened.
Christian, Christian was going for the top rope kill switch because he couldn't beat him with the regular kill switch, and you're already up there, so he just countered to the move.
Right, and you know,
that didn't bother me.
Something a little special for the pay-per-view. I get it. I just thought like maybe you use that on Moxley or, you know, somebody a little more significant.
So the Bucks came out to celebrate with Kenny, despite obviously telling that they were hurting from the cage match earlier. Anderson Gallows are out there still, and they were all attacking Christian. Jurassic Express hit the ring to try and even the odds. They got beat up too. And then Kenny starts cutting a promo about how no one's on his level. I like the line where he said, the only people who have a chance to beat me are not here, already retired. I think he actually bots that line, said like tired, but it doesn't matter. Or already dead, which is a great like, oh no, he didn't kind of line. But the not here line is great because it's like, you know, you could take that many ways with all the people, obviously, that he has history with in New Japan and stuff. But yes, then the lights go out. Adam Cole comes out to a huge pop. You know, the shirt says all elite, baby. But right away, I'm sure you guys noticed this too in the building. He came out of the heel tunnel. And I was like, he is joining them for sure. Because like I was like, there's no way Tony Khan had him come out of the heel tunnel for no reason. Like, this man is a bad man. So it's kind of like I could see someone being annoyed by that and being like, oh, they gave it away. But I think it's awesome. It's like they really stick to that face heel tunnel. And it's like, he's coming out to join them. He is coming out of the heel tunnel.
It's a little Easter egg. If you paid attention, you noticed and you saw it all coming. But if you were paying attention that deep, you probably knew what was going to happen anyway.
So, I mean, when the music first hit, I was like, oh, they're really saving Danielson, huh? And then I thought about it. I'm like, wait a second. He's going to join them. And then he definitely going to come out. But yes, he gets in the ring. He teases squaring off with them. He does the Adam Cole Bebe thing, which gets a huge reaction.
Huge.
Then he super kicks Jungle Boy, hugs the Elite. That was a great moment. And Kenny's like, this is one of our best friends. I'm like, you had the Bucks turn on him and kill him. And then to replace him with Marty Scurll, but okay, I'm sure they're going to try to explain that on being the Elite or something. And I think they were talking about that when Cole came out at first, when they were teasing squaring off. I think Cole was saying like, you know, you had them turn on me or something to Kenny, so the tease that they were going to, you know, square off. I did like Cole's line that there's no chance in hell anyone is going to stop us.
Yeah, I thought that was good.
Because of all the stories about him meeting with Vince, I guess. But then Flight of the Valkyries starts playing. Tell us what that was like in the building. I'm sure it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that hit. Honestly, the Cole pop was the biggest pop of the night.
Really?
Yes. I mean, and it wasn't. I don't even think it's close. It was the most immediate. It was the biggest. It was I think Cole showing up was a bigger surprise than Bryan Danielson.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that. People thought Danielson was going to show up on this show.
Exactly.
People thought they were going to save Cole.
Right. So Cole
it wasn't even like certain he was coming yet, right? I
exactly.
mean, I read like a report that WWE had told their marketing team, I guess, to stop using him or something, but that doesn't mean they couldn't still sign him.
That doesn't mean a lot. And you know, Britt Baker's doing the teases and all that, and she did the Panama Sunrise in the match and all that. So I thought they were building up to a Cole. I thought he was coming, but I didn't think he was coming tonight. So yeah, I think everyone expected that moment to be Bryan Danielson hits the ring, right? And instead you got Adam Cole hits the ring, and that was a bigger surprise, even though it's not a bigger business move. Without a doubt, it's not a bigger business move, but it was a bigger surprise in that moment. So the building popped huge for that. Huge Adam Cole baby. I mean, like, you know, I've been in the building for a couple of takeovers, and like I've heard that thing, you know, that whole chant, whatever, Adam Cole baby, pretty big for, you know, NXT takeovers. And that was the loudest thing I've ever heard in unison. I mean, it was incredible. And I was at the CM Punk show too. So like everyone all in on that. And I think you had, like I said, you had a Kenny crowd. You had an elite, being the elite crowd, right? So you've got all these people who travel in for this show in particular. So I think you had a big contingent of people that really wanted to see Adam Cole come in and join the elite or face off with them or show up or whatever it may be, right? And so that was huge. And then, but Flight of the Valkyries hits. And honestly, like I'm in a suite with 21 writers for Voices of Wrestling, which was the best way to experience this pay-per-view ever. And I sat in the front and I turn around and I see Rich Kraich, Suit Williams, Steve Case. I'm forgetting people just like literally in the back of the suite, just jumping up and down.
Former guest Paul Vosch was there.
Paul was there. Paul, yes, exactly. Paul,
I think Jack too.
We had so much fun with Paul this weekend.
Why? Do you like Paul's make his accent?
No, Paul's just really fun. Honestly, I mean,
all right, who got made fun of the whole time?
Nobody. Oh no,
come on. Who were you making fun of behind their back the whole time?
Was
it me?
Nope.
Was it Andy?
No, honestly, the only time we talked about anyone who wasn't there was people that we wish would have made it out. You know, I mean, honestly, it was.
Give me the list. Who'd you wish made it?
You.
Please, Chris, come on.
No, you should have.
Kiss up to me here.
You should have been there. I don't know. People would just come up as things would go along. We might have talked a little bit about some of the other conversations that had happened in the Slack while we were all there, and I rolled ourselves. But you can put that all together yourself. No, but I turned around and I mean these guys, everyone in the suite is just jumping up and down, like excited, incredible moment. I mean, honestly, we've all gone through this big show. We had a great barbecue the earlier in the day. Like we were all kind of probably exhausted, but like we just like everyone let it out at that moment. And we can see the whole stadium from where we were at, and just like people went nuts. But that was the most sustained pop. I don't think it was the most like immediate though. Whereas because the most immediate goes to Adam Cole, but like I mean, people clearly very excited. Bryan Danielson showed up at this show, and just like the energy in the building all of a sudden flipped to being like, this is all happening for real right in front of our eyes right now. Like this company is changing American pro wrestling and ultimately potentially pro wrestling as a whole, and making it like super fun again, way more cool to like enjoy, because they're not taking advantage of the fan base. They're not doing dopey dumb stuff all the time. Like, and all of a sudden you've got these guys who want to be at AEW. And that, I mean, that's huge.
Robert was teasing on Twitter that 4 months from now you might see more jumps. So
sure, I think that'll keep happening.
I can't imagine being like a NXT guy, given the direction of NXT going forward, or like a WWE mid carder, and not being like, that looks way more fun. I mean, I don't know.
If you're in the mid card of AEW, that's way more fun.
Yeah,
and honestly, it seems like they're going to have to cycle people up and down. And that will probably include the mid card. So, I mean, look at Christian Cage in a main event of a pay-per-view. Like, he shouldn't be there, like I think maybe if he had shown up now, there's no chance he ever gets there, but he had a reasonable build to get there. They protected the booking. They put him in a situation where it was going to work out, and they had a pretty good match. It was fine. He served his purpose now with that company, and he's gotten them to this point where now he's a role player probably going forward, and he's Impact's champion now too, which I guess will come into play in some way or some form. So it got him more work. So, but I mean, yeah, the building felt like a movement, and I say that a lot. I say that in other circles and other conversations, but like AEW in these moments feels like a movement. It feels like ECW probably felt in the 90s. Now I was kind of on the outside looking in as a teenager watching ECW, but like this is kind of that version of that, where like everyone wants to be a part of it in some way, or at least have their moment in this company. And then we'll see where that goes. We'll see if they have to move on, or if they move up and this company is sustainable when they don't have a bunch of talent to, take over, or do they just keep growing because the product quality can continue to grow because you have the talent.
So we didn't mention the end of the show, which was Omega running away from Danielson. Danielson came out of the babyface tunnel, and he the Jurassic Express and Christian recovered. They squared off. Kenny ran away. Danielson kicked the crap out of Nick Jackson, dropped him on his head with a German suplex, and then hit the Bushiaku knee kick on Nick Jackson. So Kenta has a lot of people stealing his moves in this company now. He has 2 targets. He has Brian and he has CM Punk. But yeah, then Danielson shakes hands with Christian, and that is the end of the show. So a lot of different ways this could go from here, obviously. Speaking very selfishly as someone who is going to the Queen's Grand Slam show for the Grand Slam Dynamite, I would love it if they somehow build right to Kenny and Danielson for that show. But just seeing Danielson in action in any way will be really exciting. So
yeah, and there weren't any like off-air tells of where things were headed, besides that Danielson's a good guy and he's here to wrestle. He did a pretty significant promo afterwards, but he kind of said all the stuff you think he would say, and I'm sure it's probably already on YouTube in one form or another, if not an official avenue. You got to figure they're going to put a big main event in that New York show. I don't know. What do you think? If they build to Kenny Danielson, do you think he wins?
No, I think Kenny will retain.
Yeah.
Because I think Kenny's going to drop it to Page still, and that'll be probably at a Full Gear, I would think.
You think they're going to go right back to it at Full Gear? I don't know.
Maybe they could keep it going until Revolution next year or something. Yeah, who knows? So a couple of things before we move on to the semi-main event. Some breaking news from New Japan of America. They announced 4 new wrestlers for the New Japan Showdown shows at the 2300 Arena in Philly. Alex Zane, Chris Bay, Jake Atlas, and Jonathan Gresham. Pretty good little lineup there. I'm into that. I have second row tickets to both nights, and I'm definitely into that lineup. And
Gresham's still essentially a Ring of Honor guy, right?
I assume so. I guess that relationship's still technically alive.
I mean, it is. So. They did that weird promo in the middle of Resurgence, and they said, like, in addition to our existing relationship with Ring of Honor, we've built exciting relationships with Impact Wrestling and AEW. And I was like, so the Ring of Honor relationship is not exciting. But so that's cool. That's awesome. But Gresham's, is that a match that they announced, or is it just announced a talent announcement? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm into those 4 names. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Jake Atlas can do. Is he booked for the Texas already, or is this his debut?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, either way, I'm excited to see what Jake Atlas will do on that show. So,
and Chris Bay, they've got a Bullet Club thing next to him, so they're really trying to lean into that being a real thing.
Okay, so we do need to plug the Patreon really quickly here before I go into the next match of All Out. So patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. You only pay $5 a month. You get tons of great content. We have our Tokyo Dome main event series, which is about to reach the end of the 1990s. So this coming week, I am doing the final match of the 90s, and I'm done with the entire decade, which is like, this is I think probably the toughest decade to do, because eventually it becomes just one dome show a year with, Wrestle Kingdom and nobody else running the dome except for, DDT's one empty arena show that we will cover, of course, because it happened at the dome. But yes, the New Japan, the final, I think it was called Final Dome 1999 with Shinya Hashimoto versus Naoya Ogawa from October 99. That is the last dome show, the last dome main event we're going to cover in that series. But you can go back and listen to all of them right now for only $5, which it's been probably my favorite series to do. Actually, not probably. It has been my favorite series to do. I don't just talk about the main event. I just discuss what else was going on in the company, what else was on the dome, on the card. We just don't go into like detail of each match, but I do go through the whole card and mention anything notable. We just did the All Japan, the Giant Baba retirement show from the Tokyo Dome. Retirement, not memorial. Cage Match gets it wrong, which we discussed on the episode. And, all the really interesting stuff that was going on in All Japan, in May of 1999. So that was a really, really fun episode to research and do. And the Tokyo Dome series, it's going to be wrap up for a little bit this week. We're going to leave off of the 90s, because then we start our daily coverage of both the G1 Climax from New Japan and the Noah N1 Victory League. So we'll do daily coverage of both those tournaments on the Patreon. Any show that's not covered on a weekly episode will only be on the Patreon. Plus, you get 2 Patreon exclusive full episodes, because you only get 2 episodes for free now, as you probably noticed on the free feed per month. Any week there is no free episode. You get a entire Patreon exclusive episode with a guest. Sometimes multiple guests. It's definitely more. Basically, if you like the show, it's more of the show. So and you get like the one match episodes that are more like little bite-sized episodes, like 20 to 40 minutes usually. And once we finish up the G1 and the M1 Victory, we'll go back to that. I take match requests sometimes. I did all the Tanahashi Naito matches in order. I did all the Okada Tanahashi matches in order. Naito and Ishii. So it's a lot of those are all a lot of fun to do, and I definitely recommend checking it out. So patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. You'll get $5, gets you everything I just mentioned, the bonus full episodes, the one match series, the daily tournament coverage, and anything else we do in the future, and everything we've done for the past like 16 months. A lot of it is historical content that's what's the term people use, evergreen, I guess, right? Like evergreen content, so you can always go back and listen to all that, all the Tokyo Dome main events, and Okada Tanahashi matches and all that. So definitely check that out. There's the Patreon plug. Let's get back to All Out. So the semi-main event was no BS Paul White defeating QT Marshall, not Marshall, with Aaron Solo and Nick Komoroto in 3:11. I mean, really all this match comes down to is, do you believe the prevailing American wrestling idea of match structure, of card structure, of super card structure has always been that you need buffer matches between your main matches to keep people from getting burnt out. I disagree. I don't think that's true at all. I like a show that just builds, very much like how Japan does it. Starts slow, builds and builds and builds and builds all the way through. You have a great semi-main event right before a great main event. Because, I mean, it's not like it helps. Having the big show squash QT Marshall in 3 minutes here did not help the crowd here in the main event. The crowd was still fucking dead for the start of that Kenny Christian match. I mean, they were dead for a lot of it. So I don't buy this idea that a buffer match, that you need to bring people down to bring them back up. That theory is so prevalent. You'll even see it in the Total Extreme Wrestling booking game and stuff, where there's like a mode where they'll punish you if you don't do that. And it's like, I don't agree with that at all. I think, you can make a crowd, you can start a crowd low, get them high, and keep them high. I would much rather do that than, these buffer matches where they feel like they need to bring the crowd back down. I just don't, it's not, this kind of thing. I have no problem with the big show. No more BS Paul White beating QT Marshall. I mean, it was a short, bad match. It was like a 1.5 stars. QT went after his injured hip, and no more BS choke slam him for the win. No angle here or anything. No go return like people were speculating. But I have no, this match just should have been like match 2 or something. I just don't agree with the idea you need a buffer. So, I don't know. What do you think?
I think it was fine. The match was what the match should be, at least. So there's that. But I think it was kind of explained away via Dave Meltzer that they put that match in that spot so that they could cut it if they needed to cut, or they could give it 10 minutes if they needed to give it 10 minutes. So like that's the prevailing explanation that's out there, which I'm sure comes straight from Tony. So they left that match in that spot in case, I guess, Darby and CM Punk went long or everything else went long, so they could just like get rid of it or run it for 3 minutes, or if nothing went long, they get 10. 10 would have been exhausting for that match, but so be it. 3.5 minutes was exactly what it should be. So the match as it stood, honestly, it did give people in the building a chance to, like, I don't know, go take a leak or whatever they needed to do, but I think that would have served them better, like maybe 2 matches prior, But I do think their match order got real jerked up by putting the Battle Royal in and not having it go first. So I think they ended up mixing some stuff around.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway,
it was a match.
The buffer matches I think aren't really necessary, but I get it. Match number 7. This was CM Punk defeating Darby Allin in 1640. This was an interesting match. Punk. First of all, he was wearing. Where were you on the long tights? I thought they were fine. Some people really seem to hate them in the Voice of Wrestling Slack. And I don't know. I thought the tights looked okay. I don't really.
I mean, every time he's shown up somewhere different, it seems like he's got kind of a new look.
Why do people think he's going to have the exact same look? It's like it's been 7 years.
Yeah.
And the guy wants to change his look up a little bit. Who cares? And
he's not young. Who knows if he's skipping leg day, right?
Yeah,
like, I don't know.
Exactly.
I'm sure he would look fine in the same old look, but I think it creates a even more separation from what he used to do to what he's doing now, which I think is good.
So we started out with like a very basic type of match. Like Punk was unable to break a Darby hammerlock for a little while. I kind of like that. It was, very basic, but just one of those things where the longer it goes on, the more interesting it is to me. Where like he just couldn't get out of this hammerlock, and you could tell also. So CM Punk before he went to WWE always had a reputation as being an in-ring conversation guy. I remember when he first got signed by WWE. It was, I think, one of the Death Valley Driver reviews, because they used to, people who only know Death Valley Driver as a form, they used to do these reviews, like just basically review random matches, in one big little article. And I don't know who wrote this line, so I just have to credit to Death Valley Driver, but I remember it's a line that stuck with me all these years, 15 years later. One of them just wrote, he was reviewing some random CM Punk indie match after he got signed. And it was like, if CM Punk is going to WWE, I really want to see him talk a lot in this match. He can lay out his matches, his 3-minute matches on Sunday Night Heat, in the back, because people thought Punk was going to be a complete failure in WWE, which is fun. He wasn't, obviously, it's funny. But I think he wrote something like, if this is going to be CM Punk's last indie run, I wanted to see him grab a headlock and have a conversation. And that line, for some reason, has really stuck with me all these years. And boy, was he grabbing some headlocks, and boy, was he having some conversations. Like, at one point, he literally had Darby in a headlock, and you could see him move his lips to Darby's ear, and just talk into his ear for 5 straight seconds. And it's like, yes, CM Punk is back. He is grabbing some headlocks and having some conversations. The bad side of the match, it was a little boring. Punk, he worked over Darby for a while. I get that because Darby's such a natural babyface, but 0 people in the Now Arena wanted to boo CM Punk. So they just went dead for that CM Punk heat segment in between light CM Punk chants. And then Darby finally got going a little bit with a nice little comeback. This is where I thought Punk was struggling. He seemed like he was really having a hard time getting himself into position to take Darby's offense during that comeback. He wasn't it wasn't like he was out of position, but he was really having a rush to get into position for each one. And you could see him he just looked like he was all red, and he looked like he looked blown up. I mean, he was really, people say there's no way to get back into wrestling shape than wrestling. And I'm sure he did a bunch of practice matches, but man, you could see him blown up during that comeback, especially. He just really looked like he was struggling out there. And it ended with a nice sunset flip powerbomb, though, from Darby for a 2 count. And then the good thing about the match, though, is I thought it picked up a lot down the stretch. So I thought Punk got better and better as the match went on. I mean, he did, there was one more little screw up where you could tell he really had a hard time pulling him out of the corner into his short arm clothesline after he hit the step up knee. He had to pull him 3 or 4 times to finally pull him. So you just I just chalk up to ring rust and maybe general exhaustion. But after that, I thought they did some good sequences. Punk went for the go to sleep. Darby elbowed his way out of it, and he was taking these repeated elbows to Punk when they hit the mat, which I couldn't tell if that was supposed to be a Bryan Danielson tease or not, but was cool either way. And then he had he got booed for that too, though, which is interesting. And then he had a great elbow suicida to Punk on the floor. Darby was working his ass off here. He had a great flip senton from the top rope all the way, out to the floor. He then went for the coffin drop. Punk sat up at the last possible second to avoid it. And, that looked really good. He tried to back up into a cover, but Darby just crucifixed him from there. But then Punk lifts him straight up, goes for go to sleep. Darby catches his leg and gets that last separate leg cradle for very, very close near fall. I thought for a second they were going to have Darby win there. I mean, that would have been the way to do it if you're going to do it. I thought it looked, it was a really good near fall. And Punk immediately answered with a huge leg lariat. That looked great too. And this was the best sequence of the match by a mile. And then they went home right after. Darby went for the Poison Rana. Punk caught him up on his shoulders and finally hit go to sleep for the pin. Pretty good. A little boring at times. You could tell, like I said, Punk really had a hard time at, earlier in the match, early to mid in the match, especially. But I thought, like I said, he improved as the match went on. So hopefully it'll all be up from here. I went 3 1/4. At the time I said it was a good thing they didn't main event with this. And maybe this is why, one of the reasons why they didn't main event with it is because, Punk was like, I'm just not ready to do a main event match on a pay-per-view. But in the end, I think I like this slightly more than Christian and Kenny. So, and I think the crowd was very forgiving. So I don't think there would have been any problem anyway if they main evented with it. But yeah, those are my general thoughts. What was it like in the building?
So obviously hot crowd for CM Punk. Big energy for CM Punk. But Darby, people like Darby. I mean, that's there's no question about that. People didn't exclusively want CM Punk to win this, I don't think.
It didn't come off that way on TV, I have to say.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I did hear it was very much of kind of the old John Cena thing where the young people and women wanted Darby Allin to win. And so those cheers pierced through when Darby was either almost losing or almost winning or, whatever it may be. And then all the dudes and all the men in the crowd wanted CM Punk to win. They definitely were firmly on the side of CM Punk winning. So that was kind of an interesting takeaway from being in the building. I think you're right. The crowd was super forgiving, wanted Punk to put on a good match, understood kind of what was happening, I think, which was CM Punk's getting his shit together again and figuring out how to wrestle on a big show.
I mean, 7 years is a long time.
It's a very long time.
I try to tell people that going into. It's that's a long time.
Yeah, and he was not. I mean, he's a good wrestler, but he's always been a little more on the story side of things, and this was on the story side of things. That he's good. He used to be really good, and he's got to get it together. And if Darby doesn't finish him quick, he's probably going to figure it out and catch him with the GTS and end the match. And that's what happened, right? And I think they teased that kind of cool with. He gave Darby the GTS and he knocked him right out of the ring. I thought that was a really cool spot.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that one. That was a cool spot.
That was a cool spot where it was oh, they're just going to do a quick one and he's going to win. And it's oh, no, Darby flipped out of the ring. And CM Punk's oh, I didn't position myself correctly in the ring. It was these little nuggets of he's still got it, but he's also rusty. So, and I thought that they put the match together really well in that way. I think Darby was a good first opponent for him in the way that Darby can move quickly, but he can also be methodical, it seems. I loved the part or the part of the match where Darby went up. I think it actually led to the finish. Darby goes up for the coffin drop and CM Punk just sits up. Kind of the Undertaker would, and just gets out of the way. It wasn't even he didn't roll out of the way. He didn't panic out of the way. He just literally got that part of his body out of the way quickly, just by bending at the waist. So, and I thought that was kind of a uniquely CM Punk way to counter the coffin drop. So, yeah, the building was hot, but I think obviously there was a lot of people that were in that building that were also there at Rampage. And that have probably also seen him at Dynamite and the next Rampage and however many times now. So I don't want to say that the allure has worn off, but there may be a part of the happy-go-lucky CM Punk allure that has worn off a touch, because I don't think I expected another like big sustained pop for him when he came out, but I think, part of it was that everyone was ready for it. Part of it was that we all were really curious what the in-ring version of this CM Punk looks like. And, ultimately I think it turned out well. I think the match was what I expected it to be. I didn't expect it to be a 5-star work rate, whatever it may be. But I'm so curious what they do next with CM Punk, because I hope
there were no obvious clues here at all.
Exactly. I hope, and there's no like obvious money making thing to do with him next. Now you've got him in the promotion. You've got to get him into like a real program, not just like a Darby Allin, like I'm going to call you out and we're going to have a match and it's going to be good. Like that's kind of where we've been.
The obvious one to me is probably MJF, because they could cut really great promos on each other and they both are like kind of story guys.
Sure. And, but MJF wrestles 3 times a year. It's like, it's ironic. He rarely actually gets in the ring, but yeah, I mean, that would be good. It would establish CM Punk as like a babyface, but he probably needs a little edge. Kind of in that, I don't know, in the way that people like really love to hate MJF, they probably need to give a little bit of that to CM Punk, but on the babyface side of the aisle. So yeah, I'm most curious what they do next. I think the match was good. I think the building was a little less hot than I thought it was going to be, but also, as we've kind of talked about, like that there are matches on the show that were early in the show that really took it out of the crowd, just in a positive way. But it ended up a long show, and we haven't really touched on that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the crowd was more into this than they were the previous match we're about to talk about. But, it definitely took some time to build up. The problem, like I said, was, I think a big problem was like the same thing with Kenny and Christian, where the crowd really wanted Punk to win, and he was the one working over the other guy for a long time. It just didn't really, that element doesn't lead itself to big crowd reactions. I've seen that before, even with like, back when New Japan, used to have crowds that were allowed to make noise. You would see that a lot with Naito matches, where Naito would work heel in the match because he was more heel on the heel side than the guy he was facing, if they were from Chaos or Hontai. But like the crowd was very pro Naito, so they didn't have anything to do during this long Naito heel segment. It's like, okay, the guy we want to win is just kicking the other guy's ass. Good, I get it. It just doesn't really lend itself to big reactions. So,
I also didn't. I don't know if this was a crowd that was gonna appreciate like a wrestling match.
Well, that's a big problem with AEW crowds in general.
Yeah, right. So I feel like this was a little bit of that, where they did have like, I mean, they started with collar and elbow, and they, there was a hammerlock, and there was a lot of wrestling instead of striking and big moves and things like that. So I think that they're
gonna have to like reteach people, especially with Danielson there now.
Yeah, Danielson, Punk, even Christian, if you're going to keep him in that space, right? I mean, and there's plenty more that I think are strongest with that. So that was my takeaway as I was sitting there watching it. Is like, I don't know that this crowd knows what to do during just a regular ass wrestling match.
Yeah, that's fair. And then afterwards, Punk shook hands with Punk shook hands with Sting. He helped Darby up. They shook hands too. So maybe like, I've heard Joe again speculate this, that maybe this will become a new trio now. So I guess we'll see. Match number 6, Jericho's career on the line. Chris Jericho defeats MJF in 1936. First of all, MJF ripping off the Jericho countdown, but then having it be Jericho's last match. That was very funny. I mean, A+ troll.
That was the best troll that they could have possibly done.
I mean, just listening to the crowd's reaction, it was just great. But then we have a disaster. Chris Jericho gets played down to the ring by, I guess, Fozzy's backup guitarist. Now, apparently, this is what I was told on Twitter. I don't know anything about Fozzy, so this is wrong. Blame the person who told me on Twitter. But someone claimed this was the rhythm guitarist, and the lead guitarist was actually sick with COVID, which, like, given Chris Jericho, given everything we know about Jericho and his personal life, kind of makes sense. But then on the other hand, it's like, maybe if there's supposed to be the lead guitarist, that's why this turned out so horrible. Because I don't know if it was like, I heard some people say it was the audio mixing. This sounded horrible, whatever it was. The crowd could not sing. I mean, look, the crowd did singing with no musical accompaniment at all a few weeks back for that last match with MJF, way better than they sang with just the guitar and, no vocals here. I mean, that sounded horrible. I mean, what was it like in the building? Because it sounded horrible in person.
It was terrible. So
I reversed that. It sounded horrible on TV.
I don't know anything about Fozzy, same way you do. But I do know a little something about being in a band playing music.
That's true. And you know about audio mixing.
And I know about audio mixing and audio equipment. Like a lot about those things because that's my past. But so if it's Fozzy's rhythm guitarist, he's probably still a really good guitar player. So that's not a real excuse. The piece about it is he started to play guitar in the melody of the vocals, which is not what he normally would do. And like that, I'm sure was supposed to prompt the crowd to sing along with that. But the audio in the building was worse than the audio on TV, if you can believe it. So how this all kind of works, like this dude clearly was not like wired in. So he's using a wireless transmitter for his guitar. And that's being sent probably two different ways, right? It's being sent from his guitar into whatever amplifier or fake amplifier he's using. And then that's being fed to the TV feed. And then that's also being fed to the speakers in the building. And then whoever does the audio mixing is mixing that all together. Now, the guitar sounded fine. Actually sounded just fine and clear as day in the building until the pyro started going off. And wireless transmitters for like a guitar are probably on similar frequencies to wireless transmitters to pyro. This is all, I'm just putting together the pieces. And I don't know that much about pyro, but I know that they work on similar, like really protected frequencies as certain sound equipment. If you need to transmit really safe data back and forth, and it can't necessarily all be wired. So either that or the pyro, literally just like the heat, the fire, the whatever of it all, just like literally got in the way of that audio band essentially. So the guitar sounded like hell in the building, and I could tell he was like playing generally correctly what he wanted to play because I see his hands moving and in the right rhythm. But yeah, this was a disaster in the building, and I went back and watched it on TV, and it actually sounded better on the TV. So I don't know if that transmission just went better for whatever reason, or it was clearer, or there was some different piece to that puzzle. But yeah, the pyro seemed to mess up the like quality of the audio that was coming out of the speakers, and then the crowd just never really got it back. Also, I don't understand what they were really trying to accomplish, because like this wasn't part of like the deal. I guess, or was it? I don't know. Like, I know that MJF had no
stipulation. Yeah, there's no stipulation.
They had this stipulation with the one match where he couldn't use his thing, and then they like everyone knew like, oh, they're just trying to get the crowd to sing it, and it'll be cute or whatever. But yeah, like why did this happen?
And they probably just thought it'd be a cool entrance for pay-per-view, and it was anything but.
It was not.
I think it actually hurt the heat of the match.
Absolutely.
Like the match itself had very little heat. Like this was like the first match on the show the crowd was dead for. And I think, okay, part of that problem, I think, was, they put the Women's Casino Battle Royale we're about to talk about as another buffer after that crazy tag team cage match we're also going to talk about shortly. And, I think the idea was that the Women's Casino Battle Royale will be a buffer. The problem is that match ended up being way hotter, and especially at the finish was way hotter than maybe they were even expecting. And it wasn't a buffer. I mean, the crowd was still really hot. And then the terrible entrance here sort of killed them. And then they never got in the match until the dusty finish at the end, which we'll talk about. But I think it was a combination of the Fozzy thing, the guitarist thing, I think killed them. And then, like you said earlier, I don't think anyone in the building thought Chris Jericho was losing this match and being retired. So that stipulation actually hurt the match, I think. Because this match, I mean, I don't know how you feel about their Dynamite match from a few weeks ago, the No Judas Effect match. I thought that was awesome. I went like 4.25 on that. I thought that was like, a really, really good match. And this was just like not. I mean, this was just like, it was fine. But, Jericho was like really in old and slow mode. Like his offense was very slow at times. That this was just kind of bad for a while. And then MJF came back with the heat seeker on the apron, and Jericho came back with an apron power bomb. So that finally did get me a little into it. The big moves started coming in and started getting me into it. The MJF arm work I didn't think really went anywhere, unlike the last match. That was another little issue. And then there was a cool moment where MJF like countered Jericho coming off the top rope into a nice one knee code breaker. Great timing from both guys, but the crowd was still not really reacting. And then Jericho finally hit a lion salt for a 2 count, and that at least got the old "You Still Got It" chant, which is one of my least favorite chants, honestly. It's like this guy, it was even more absurd with this guy because it's like, it makes more sense when it's a wrestler like is coming back from something or like a retirement, whatever. Like Jericho's been on this promotion since day one. Why are you chanting "You Still Got It" at him? And this wasn't even that great of a performance, honestly. Jericho did a bunch of punches to MJF on the top rope. MJF countered it to a great top rope powerbomb, just like destroyed him with it. But I really, for a guy who usually is not bad at this kind of thing, I thought MJF's selling of his back after he landed was pretty horrible. Like he just was doing this really hokey and fake sounding screaming. And I was like, where did this come from? This was like, were you watching too much of like 2018 Will Ospreay or something? It was just very very over the top. And then Wardlow started coming out to interfere. Jake Hager came out to cut him off, to no reaction, by the way. Did not care about Jake Hager. The referee, like, again, looked like a fucking idiot here. She was just staring at the two of them brawling for 1,000 years like a complete moron. It's like, what is so fucking fascinating about these two men who are not in your pro wrestling match that you're officiating, having a fight up the ramp that you have to like stick your head out the ropes like, they're really fighting, huh? It's just like, what are you doing? All that, of course, was so MJF can hit Jericho in the face with a bat. He then hit the Judas Effect on Jericho. Jericho got his foot in the bottom rope. The ref counted 3 anyway. And they did the Dusty finish here. The other ref came out. Now, normally I would have to bury a Dusty finish. It's a very stupid finish. But it worked here. I mean, the crowd that didn't care at all before the restart was suddenly going nuts. So I don't know if it's just like they got the idea in their heads that Jericho could actually lose or something. And that they were really into it after that. But yeah, the Dusty finish totally worked here. And Jericho, schoolboyed MJF. MJF got the armbar. Unfortunately, the big ending of this match was completely botched. Like, Jericho was supposed to counter the armbar into the walls of Jericho. It did not work at all. It took forever. Looked horrible. And that I had to take something off for that because it looked awful. And that was the finish. MJF tapped. I really had a hard time rating this one. It was nowhere near as good as their Dynamite match, like I said. I guess at the end of the day, I'll say it was fine. But man, fucking up that transition from the armbar to the walls really hurt the ending for me. But I went 3 stars on it. Like, at the end of the day, it was fine. But pretty disappointing after the Dynamite match was so good.
I really liked the finish. I will say that's kind of the only thing I can add is that, like, the finish of this match worked. And normally that kind of wacky bullshit stuff, like, doesn't work for me. But I was like, like Aubrey counted 3, and I was like, oh, well, so this is just going to continue. They're going to go back on and on with more Jericho MJF stuff, and it's going to be this, it's just going to keep going. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, I guess that's that. Like, he's definitely not going to retire on that. So Paul Turner, the other ref, he's the one who chased off Wardlow and Jake Hager. So it's like they did that whole kind of run-in thing because they needed to get him out there, like, to get like real eyes on the situation.
I see.
So like that
I didn't even notice that part.
Well, I don't know that you would. I don't know that they had the camera work.
That's a good point. Yeah, they didn't have the camera on them at all.
Right. So like Wardlow, Jake Hager come out, Paul Turner chases them off. He's basically the guy that's like, get out of here, get out of here, get out of here.
Wait a second. Okay, wait a second. That makes it even stupider that Audrey, is that her name? That makes it even stupider that she was looking at them. This is under control. Another referee has this brawl under control, and you're fucking staring at them for no reason. Now I'm even madder. That's so fucking stupid. Anyway.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, so that was at least that was my perception of it, is that he chased them off and then he was out there, and that was the only reason to get him out there. So there's probably some dumb pro wrestling rule that it has to be seen by real eyes of a real referee, not on a tape or whatever, right? So that worked. The crowd at no point during the beginning of that match, during the first part of that match, before the first bell, or second bell, I guess, at no point did anyone think Jericho was losing, except that Jericho was starting to pepper in a lot of his old moves, I guess, right? Like all of his old signature stuff. And that was the only thing that got the crowd to pop for anything. It was the Lion Salt. It was the Code Breaker. When he would do any of his old signature stuff, the crowd would kind of get back into it. So once they ran that, though, that last, I don't know, 90 seconds maybe, after the first bell, after they restarted the match, that crowd was hot. Because now you're right, like they believed that MJF could win that match, because he kind of just did, even though it was nefarious and whatnot. But he still had gotten that, he had gotten that bell to ring and Jericho's career. But so that worked. I thought it was cool. I think they don't do much of that in AEW at all, so it was kind of unique in that way. So it was kind of nice that they did something like that. But yeah, overall the match was kind of a dud. It didn't really have any reason to be on the pay-per-view. It should have just been the first blow-off that they didn't do, or that they did on Dynamite. I don't know why we needed to do this all twice, except I guess to add the retirement stip, which Jericho put on himself. So what motivation does he have to hold on to that, I guess? So it was kind of a weird match. I felt like they should have skipped the Dynamite match, just done the Dynamite match on this card, and maybe Jericho wins, maybe he doesn't. But the retirement thing didn't really add much to it, except for the drama of the Dusty finish that ended up happening. So it was fine. The entrance, I think singing Fozzy for that particular crowd to just the regular backing track would have energized the crowd, and they would have been really into the match. And I think that they really messed up with that entrance. They got too cute by half.
So there you go. Too cute by half is a great way to describe that entrance, for sure. The women's battle royal, and I should probably go a little faster here, because this All Out review is going to be the whole podcast at this rate. There's a lot to talk about, I get it. So, but for some of these matches, hopefully it won't be as much. The women's battle royal, I'm not going to read the entire list here, but Ruby Soho won the thing in 21:56. This was a fine battle royal. I mean, I thought this was a, it's not, battle royals are not ever great, but I thought they had enough little storylines in here. They had the what's it called? The Jade and Nyla Rose alliance, with Nyla turning on her to get Jade out. That was paid off. They had the what's his name? The Bunny and Penelope Ford alliance, and the feud with the Anna Jay and the one everybody loves.
Tay
Conti.
How could you forget?
The girl's always putting her butt on things, right? Is that the joke?
That's exactly the joke from the Slack.
But yes, I mean, and the people, before anyone tries to cancel me, that's just her Instagram. Okay, go look at her Instagram. It's just her sitting her naked butt on things. Okay, that's all it is. So go look at the Instagram. I'm being defensive here for an imaginary person again, but seriously, go look at the Instagram. Anyway, the girl loves to put her butt on motorcycles and all sorts of things.
Bicycles,
bicycle
racks.
Bicycle racks. I was going to say the first two are the normal things to put a butt on, but maybe not an exposed buttocks. So. But yeah, so she was here. They paid off that storyline, and then obviously you had the big surprise with Ruby Soho, and she was able to win this match. Came down to her, Thunder Rosa, and Nyla Rose. They teamed up Nyla, and they're finally able to eliminate her after a nice little struggle. And Ruby and Rosa did the fighting on the apron thing. That's always the best way to end any kind of Rumble or Battle Royal. And Ruby was able to send her or sort of kick her off the apron to win the match. I mean, her debut was great. I mean, Ruby Soho, she came across like a huge star when she came out here. And you could tell she was just so happy to be out there and just having a great time. So that really helped too. And, she is exactly the kind of thing the women's division needs, where, they just need a few more women who, they have a lot of, projects, right? They have a lot of prospects, like, who don't have a ton of experience, like, who look good though. Like, like Layla Hirsch, she looks good when she's in there. And I'm not talking about looks here. I mean, like literally, like they look good at wrestling. Layla Hirsch, Jade Cargill, like they have people who have potential, and but they could use more wrestlers who are already established, and that's definitely what Ruby's going to bring to the table here. And yeah, the pop in the building it sounded loud on TV. Was it? I imagine it was loud in the building too.
Oh yeah. And people love the Rancid song, and people, pretty much everyone knew this was happening.
Yeah.
And that
it was
she
very obvious,
and that she was the Joker, and then it was super. I mean, the silly,
but obvious is good sometimes.
Obvious is what this company does, to be honest. Like more than anything in their storylines, and I was talking to
American wrestling has broken everybody's brain so much over the last 20, 30 years, thinking you have to swerve everybody all the time.
Right.
And AEW is just like, let's just do obvious things and make them good. And it's like, okay, shockingly, that works.
Which is what built New Japan for not to go completely off, but for 8 years. Like, they did the obvious things, and some of them took longer than others. But when you look back on it, they did all the obvious things. Yeah, I mean, I was talking to somebody who was in the area next to us about how in sync people can be if they think about where AEW is going and what they're doing. And you can see it all happen, but it's still satisfying. They do still find that way to creatively make it satisfying to the fans, which is exactly what they should be doing. It should be creatively satisfying. Even not everything's a swerve, like you said, and the swerves are frustrating sometimes because you just want the payoff and you want the good story.
You know what was a swerve? Having Becky Lynch come out at SummerSlam and beat Bianca Belair in 25 seconds. That also fucking sucked.
Right.
So swerves are often pretty bad, especially when it comes to American wrestling. So I mean, there are such a thing as a good swerve and a good time to do them, but boy, has American wrestling gone overboard with it in the last like 30 fucking years. So
right. So I mean, even this battle royal, I don't know the details of how many times the Joker wins the AEW battle royal, which is kind of maybe an interesting thing to look at. But like, it didn't feel shitty that Ruby Soho won this battle royal as the Joker, the debuting Joker. Because she's good. She's a good wrestler, and you may as well throw her in there in a match for the championship and see what happens. I mean, I don't know if she'll win because Britt's hot and all that, hot in the way of being over with the crowd, but like, so I don't know that title run is over by any means. So maybe she's not going to win that, but shoot, I don't know if anyone could debate if she did. Maybe that is a way to get the belt off of Britt for a little while and make things interesting in a division that I don't know how many times can you go back to Riho and Chris Statlander.
Yeah.
So I liked it. It was a well-booked battle royal, and it only lasted like 20 minutes.
Yeah. I think I gave it 3 stars or something, which is, I mean, battle royals have a pretty hard ceiling with me, but it was good. Match number 4, the AEW World Tag Team Title Steel Cage match. The Lucha Brothers defeat the Young Bucks in 22:04. So this was actually the longest match in the show by a little bit. And they win the belts. So obviously, okay, where do I go with this? This is getting a lot of Match of the Year talk. A lot of people have it at 5 stars. I have to be the grump that says it wasn't quite 5 stars for me. It wasn't Match of the Year level for me. And I'm going to try to explain why, but it's going to get people very mad at me. Now, before I say anything else, I want to stress, I gave this 4.25 stars. I thought it was awesome, okay? Before anybody tells me that I hated it and I'm so biased against the Young Bucks, yes, the Young Bucks are not my favorite wrestlers. I'm very upfront about that. It's why they both have me blocked on Twitter because they vanity searched me talking too much shit about them. But this match was awesome. I'm not going to try to argue to you that it wasn't awesome, but it wasn't a 5-star match of the year, surefire match of the year, or even match of the year contender to me. And I'm going to explain why. I thought for a 22-minute match, first of all, the live rapping of the Lucha Brothers theme song, that was awesome.
That ruled.
That was really cool. Anyway, for the match, I thought the early portion of this match really dragged. They did a lot of running into the cage and such. It got really repetitive. The Bucks were choking them with a chain against a cage. I thought that was pretty boring for a while. And a match that's going to be 5 stars, and especially one that only goes 22 minutes, should not be that boring for that long. There was it picked up with some cool double team stuff. The crowd liked that part a lot. They gave the "this is awesome" treatment. I still wasn't quite in love at that point. And then they did a lot of what I call move, long setup, move, long setup, move stuff with no transitions in between. A lot of people love that stuff, and that's why a lot of people rate Young Bucks matches of this kind a lot higher than I do. It really reminded me of a lot of their ladder wars in Ring of Honor, which a lot of people are almost always more high, were more high on at the time than me, because there wasn't a lot of flow to a lot of it. I mean, there was a lot of like I said, we do a move, we do a long setup, we do a move, we do a long setup. It just didn't flow to me. It didn't have there were no transitions in between. That was my big problem. Now, at a certain point, it became really, really good. And this is why I still went 4.25. Matt Jackson, I loved him just being a complete asshole, kicking them both in the dick to set up more bang for your buck on Phoenix before Pentagon made the save. Then the Bucks start tearing off their masks. Then it starts getting really nasty, like cage match nasty, where Brandon Cutler throws that bag over the top of the cage. Have to say, great throw by him. Great throw. Matt Jackson gets the bag. He pulls out the sneaker with thumbtacks on the bottom, which we've seen before. And Pentagon, leaps in front of his brother Phoenix, despite already being bloodied, and takes the thumbtack super kick. And then Nick, sends him into the thumbtacks with Matt sitting on the top rope with the shoe out. And then Nick hits a running boot in the corner, and Penta's just bleeding buckets at this point. And this felt like an old school cage match. This was nasty. They could have just gone in there and just kept doing moves. And I felt like this is when the match went to another level for me, where instead of the normal kind of spot fest stuff, they had a nasty cage match, like a real blow off between two teams that hate each other. The Bucks gave Penta the BTE trigger. Phoenix dived in to save Penta. And then he took or just before the 3 count. I mean, that in the building, I've heard that people thought that was the finish, right? I mean, it came off watching on TV, I thought it was the finish too, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it was there were a lot of things that could have been the finish, but that was definitely the biggest.
Matt took off the thumbtack shoe and tried to hit Phoenix with it, but Phoenix ducked it. He went wild on both of them. He nailed them both with the shoe, and then they hit the Black Fire Driver on Matt, but he just barely kicked out. And then, this part I thought was goofy, because you're in the middle of this bloody match now, this fucking, you're trying to kill each other, and then Matt and Pentagon are both on the apron with package pile drivers set up on each other's partners, and Penta does his little Zero Miedo thing, and then Matt does it back at him. And I was like, come on, that's fucking stupid. Just kind of too cute for a, what's become a blood match here. So that I didn't like. But then Pentagon did an avalanche style Canadian Destroyer on Matt Jackson. That looked crazy. And then all 4 guys stood in a circle and threw chops and super kicks at each other. A little goofy again for me for what had become a blood match by that point, but not as bad as the double pile driver.
I love that.
Okay.
I thought they did it really well, because they did the whole circle chop thing, circle super kick, and then you thought it was over with one of the Young Bucks, and then Phoenix pops up and gives another super kick, and then Penta pops up, gives another super kick, and then it was a double down for somebody else, and then all 4 were actually down. It was a really fun moment in the building, and I think it was probably fun to watch on TV too, but specifically in the building, that was when the crowd was like, this is we're gonna go ape shit for the rest of this match. That was the launch pad.
Chris was just like, I think this might be a you problem, John.
I'm just saying that was I get that it was clearly like, but the same way that, you know, I don't know, Ishii and Shibata kicking each other in the G1 in 2013, it was
okay, I get that.
Okay,
Ishii and Shibata weren't trying to kill each other with a fucking shoe made out of thumbtacks.
That was the beginning of the Ishii Shibata match, kind of. So I will give you that. Okay, so we're both right here, I think.
I'm just saying, like, this would be like if in the middle of the fucking Tully and Magnum TA I Quit match where they're trying to fucking stab each other's eyes out and shit, they're just like, let's do a little
shot battle.
Yeah, it didn't work for me. So I mean, if it worked for you, that's fine.
All right, it worked for me.
I thought it was kind of that, and the double package pile driver in the apron I thought was kind of stupid.
Oh, that was, yeah, okay, I'll give you that one.
Thank you.
That one got an eye roll from the person who sat next to me, even.
Oh, Dave Meltzer, really?
Yeah. Kind of. Like, I looked over and he was just kind of like,
That's awesome. People who think he just loves everything the Bucks do. Like,
I mean, he loved this match, I'll tell you that much. But even that, we kind of both were like, not sure about that one.
Phoenix does the crossbody off the top of the cage on all three of them. That was obviously crazy. And then they do the double team pile driver Nick Jackson, and that is the pin. Again, I'm sure a lot of you are going to be way higher than this than me. That's fine. This was still awesome. Still clear the match of the night. I went 4 1/4 stars. Like I said, I thought it dragged early. Thought maybe they missed their peak a little bit at the end, and plus there was a lot of goofy spots towards the end. But those are the complaints. The good stuff. It was an incredible match. They did a lot of incredible spots. The thumbtack shear was great and really just made this feel like a bloody cage match blow-off. So, you know, it was gory enough to be a real cage match. And they really, and thank God they don't do the WWE Escape the Cage rules, which are the worst rules for gimmick match, like in the history of wrestling. So it just makes no sense. Like, you're locked in a cage, and now to show how great you are, you must run away from your opponent faster than they can run away from you. Just very stupid. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been lucky enough to be in the building for 2 really wild Young Bucks Lucha Brothers matches, because I was also at the All Out with the ladder match. So, and I think the building was hotter for this one. I think this one was, shorter too, which I think helped. And everyone expected some like off the top of the cage stuff, and really all we got was Phoenix doing a high cross to 3 dudes, like a really kind of a safe, as safe as you can get, jumping off a cage that's tall, which is, it's a very tall cage, and that led to the finish. So otherwise, you know, I think people kind of expected a callback to the ladder match or table match, or, you know, whatever. I guess it's just a ladder match, but where someone gives someone a Canadian off the top of the cage, because they did the Canadian off the ladder into the table at the last All Out that was in Chicago. But that would have been probably a disaster, and I'm glad they didn't even try it, because it probably would have ruined things. So this was a really fun match to see live. I think they did a good job pacing it. I'm glad it didn't go any longer than it did. And I think the thumbtack shoe thing was a nice add to like get people to hate on the Young Bucks even more, and really just establish that like the people that we're supposed to be cheering for are definitely the Lucha Brothers.
Can I just say real quick, sometimes I'm like confused by the level of heel hate the Bucks get. I mean, I guess part of it's the crowd wanting to go along with it, but like this is kind of like their promotion, right? And you know, it feels like they get so much heel hate even beyond Kenny. I mean, I guess they're so annoying is what it is, but like, yeah, they
people just, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if it's that people go with it, or if it's that they've done a pretty good job of being like,
I mean, look,
really annoying.
They should be heels because they are naturally obnoxious people, in my opinion.
Clearly. And then when you're kind of naturally obnoxious, and then you also like dye your facial hair different colors, like, and do the whole thing with the shoes and all that, like they're pretty unlikable. And then people have always wanted to like the Lucha Brothers. And
football season is back, Let's make the most of it with a better way to create your custom pool at runyourpool.com, the premier sports pool hosting service. Run Your Pool makes it ridiculously easy to run a football pool with friends, family, or office mates. They offer dozens of formats including Survivor, Pick'em, Squares, Margin, Confidence Pools, 33, and a lot more. Run Your Pool hosts formats for NFL and college football with one-week games, full season, playoffs, or the Super Bowl. And unlike other fantasy sports platforms, they've got options and settings to make it your own. You can even brand your pool for your local business, bar, alumni, or restaurant. The NFL season starts September 9th, so check them out today and get $10 off at runyourpool.com/podcast or use promo code podcast at checkout. Have your pool up and running in minutes at runyourpool.com/podcast. Don't forget, today you get $10 off at runyourpool.com/podcast.
They weren't supposed to, I guess, but now they're kind of tweeners, but definitely faces in this match. Yeah. But I can't pinpoint when they flipped over to being baby faces, honestly.
It just kind of happened one day.
Yeah. Well, it happened when they were like, well, we're going to fight the Young Bucks soon, so we better, be good guys. So, and people want to love them. They really do. They want to love them. They want to cheer for them. So
I thought it happened when Pac came back and like they split from Kingston, but I don't know. So it went
right, but Kingston's the most popular guy in the promotion.
Kingston then turned face.
Yeah. So they all kind of flipped at the same time, but not together.
Yeah. Kingston flipped after the Moxley match, that I remember.
Right, because then he was aligned.
Yeah.
So just fun match to be at, fun match to see live. I understand your criticism of the circle of super kicks and chops, but we had a good time with it.
Match number, and again, I love the match. I don't want anybody to come and tell me I'm hating on the match with the Young Bucks. I just didn't love it as much as you did, and hopefully that's okay. I didn't mean you. I just meant the audience.
Sure. Yeah.
Match number 3, although I do think you liked it more than I did, probably. Match number 3 was the Women's World Title. Britt Baker defeats Chris Statlander in 11:35. This was a good match. It was physical, a little clunky at times, but it was stiff, which I always appreciate. I mean, Britt was working Chris over, and then Statlander came back with some really nice series of strikes in the corner, which like I said, looked stiff. And then Chris ended up missing a huge standing moonsault off the apron to the floor. I guess the pendulum moonsault is what that's called, and that looked nasty. And then Britt took advantage with a sick curb stomp. She just jumped right off those ring steps and then hit the Pittsburgh Sunrise, the big Adam Cole tease, which the people sure loved. And then a second stomp. Statlander kicked out, but then Britt got the lockjaw on her, and that was it. She wins pretty much clean. I think there was a little bit of interference from Reba or whatever. But good match here. I went 3.5 stars, and you can definitely see how much Britt Baker has improved, where her execution of moves and stuff is just so much better than it used to be. So
yeah, this match was great for the placement on the card, for what it was, for the build up to the match. I think Britt has that crowd in the palm of their hands. Britt's one of those ones where everyone really wants to cheer Britt. So I think that made things a little hard with any sort of dynamic with Statlander, but I don't know that it mattered because I'm pretty sure this was another one of those matches that you knew. You kind of knew the result going in. It would have been a big shock if Statlander won this match, but much better match than the last time Statlander had a championship match in Chicago on a pay-per-view for AEW, which was the one against Nyla Rose after the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Adam Page match, which was an absolute disaster. So this, she came to play a little bit harder this time, or she was in good health this time, I think is what it was. So, and I think this was a pretty good showing. There was the moment where Orange Cassidy got super riled up and super aggressive to say,
that was cool.
Yeah, get into it, Statlander and all that. And I don't know if that's a cue for what's going to happen in the future with him, or if we're starting to see a different side, or if that was just a way to add some levity to the match. But that was a neat thing that happened. It was noticeable.
Match number 2 was Jon Moxley defeating Satoshi Kojima in 11:52. This was really good, I thought. I mean, first of all, though, why did Satoshi Kojima come out of the heel tunnel? It's very bizarre. It's like he's definitely not a heel in New Japan. And I hope this is not Tony Khan telling us all Japanese people are heels in the American wrestling tradition. I hope this is not like, oh, he's fighting Moxley, so he must be a heel. I mean, he didn't do anything heelish at all.
Well,
So
Moxley doesn't even use the tunnel, so who cares?
That's true. Why the heel tunnel? It's very weird.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That-
Oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say that's an interesting detail.
Moxley had a nice dive to the floor. He was then working over Kojima's taped hand back in the ring. And he was basically working as the heel here. I mean, he was like taunting Kojima as he was like chopping him in the corner and stuff. I mean, he would, and Kojima worked as a total babyface, which makes the heel tunnel thing even more confusing. Kojima did the machine gun chops, the elbow in the corner. He did his signature "Let's go, you bastards" yell, and nobody did it back to him, unfortunately. So these people knew who he was. They knew who he was, and they gave him a nice pop, but they were not hardcore enough to do that yell. So, I mean, I'd have to look it up first to do it, too. So
I think we had it in the suite, but we were so far away that you weren't going to hear it.
You did do the yell?
I did.
There you go.
Can't speak for everyone, but I'm sure Paul did. Paul was wearing a cozy Lariat shirt, so, we were pretty invested in this match.
Kojima did the elbow drop off the top. He had a DT on the apron. That was pretty cool. And we got some nice lariats. At one point, so Moxley ducks a lariat from Kojima and then drops him right on his friggin' head with a German suplex. Kojima came back with a standing lariat and the Koji cutter, but he was out and couldn't cover. The only thing I didn't like, and this kind of took the match down a little bit for me towards the end, was I thought their elbow exchange was pretty pedestrian. But it did end in an exciting way, with Kojima hitting a roaring elbow out of nowhere, only for Moxley to bounce off the ropes behind him and hit the rebound lariat. So it gets points for a good ending, but the actual elbows were not much. Moxley locked in the Bulldog headlock. Kojima makes the ropes, and then Moxley hits several middle kicks on Kojima. Just the image of a man in jeans, a white guy in jeans throwing fucking middle kicks was really funny to me for some reason. And they were good middle kicks too, but just looked very odd. And then he finally delivers 2 straight paradigm shift DDTs, and that gets the pin. I thought this was a lot of fun. I went 3 3/4. This is like the one match on the card I seem to be higher than people on, and they're like, I'm sure people are like, yeah, John, you're Japanese bias. But I'm not that much higher. I mean, the gravel average last time I checked was like 3.49 or something. But yeah, I thought this was really good. I had a lot of fun with it.
This was the match I was most invested in, maybe because I love New Japan. But it was kind of exactly what you would imagine a Kojima versus Moxley match on a second on a card, on any card, to be. But I think it was good. I think it was exactly what it needed to be. I think they both had a good time. I think it obviously would have been a shock for Moxley to lose this match given the circumstances, but it was cool to see him come out. It was cool to see the lion mark on the big screen behind him, to continue to affirm this relationship that I think is beneficial to both sides. And, when Kojima tweets something like, I love to hear the roar of a crowd. I mean, not that it didn't already make sense to me why these guys were coming over here, Kojima, Nagata, Suzuki, like you name it, like all these guys are coming over here because they literally just want to hear a crowd that can cheer. And whether they're cheering for them or against them or for somebody else on the same card as them, like they just want to hear that and like feel that like in their bones again. Because like that's what these guys are all about, and any country in the planet, and Japan's the country that's decided that cheering is going to spread COVID. That makes things really challenging, and I'm sure super challenging for a guy who's been doing it for as long as him too. So glad to see. And I want to say, he could come over.
And what you just said I've seen some insane takes on the lack of cheering in New Japan, and one I've seen is like that somehow this is what New Japan wants, and it's like no. The moment it is socially acceptable to allow cheering at an event in Japan, they will allow cheering. Like, people are out of their minds if they think this is somehow what New Japan wants. I mean, I've seen that take a couple times, and that is insane. It is like, if you only watch New Japan, I guess you don't know. But this is not just a New Japan thing. This is every wrestling promotion in Japan and every sporting event, every event. Like I know people who are really into idol concerts and they can't do the cheers and the screams, the calls they normally do. I mean, it's everything. No one can cheer in Japan. That's just, they tell you on roller coasters not to scream.
Scream in your hearts.
Scream in your hearts. That's how crazy they are at this right now. I mean, we'll get into that when we get to New Japan in a second, because I have some more to say on that. But yes, the wrestlers want to be able to be in front of people cheering. That is obviously very true. Speaking of people cheering, Minoru Suzuki's music hits post-match to a gigantic pop. You guys must have been going crazy in the suite for that.
I mean, yes. Like, the only thing comparable was when Bryan Danielson came out. Like, we all should have thought of this, right? Like, I think we've seen this take your post on Twitter. Like, everyone should have known this was going to happen, but no one put it out there because there was so much speculation about other things, and for any number of reasons.
I thought he was coming in to be Lance Archer's partner against whatever the fuck that guy's name is, the fucking MMA guy that I don't care about.
Oh, right, sure.
And I thought he was going to be Lance Archer's partner against his tag team Men of the Year, which is, in hindsight, it's very stupid of me because this is obviously a way bigger spot. And I mean, he could still do that, I guess, but after he has this Moxley match, because they're doing it on Wednesday on Dynamite.
Right.
But yeah, in hindsight, this was so obvious.
I mean,
he's clearly in the country. I mean, he's going to be all over the fucking country. So.
Everywhere. He's doing a big tour of the U.S. We all should have known that this was. So I think I had posted somewhere or told someone that Moxley hinted at a mutual friend, that you should follow him to Cincinnati if you can. And like, I was like, well, what could that possibly mean? And I was like, I didn't even think about, oh, fucking Minoru Suzuki's going to show up and then they're going to have a match immediately thereafter.
Yeah.
And I mean, how fun was that? Like, the crowd knew Suzuki, that's for sure. Knew Kaze ni Nare.
They went crazy.
Nuts.
I will say the Kaze ni Nare did not sound as loud as some of the ones I've seen in New Japan of America shows. Like that one, nothing to me over top that LA show.
Sure.
Strong Style Evolve, where I feel like that was the loudest one of all time, to the point where even like Milano and them on the Japanese commentary were going crazy about it. But this was still very loud. I mean, it was still very loud.
It was pretty good. I mean, like, pretty good. Not as big as the Adam Cole Bebe participation, but probably 70% of that at least, and that's pretty solid. So I mean, yeah, and we were obviously,
it could just be the way AEW makes the crowd too.
Sure, and we were going nuts with our group. Like, all of a sudden the music hit, and like, just our suite in particular probably was like the first pop that you hear, and then just like the rest of the building just went wild. So that was my favorite moment of the night, being in the building, and for obvious reasons, for my associations and things like that. But man, that was a heck of a surprise. Really awesome.
I don't know. Did we ever explain that you all of you guys were in a suite? I don't think we ever explained that.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, because we've said the suite a few times. So all the voice wrestling people at the show almost were in one suite. So that's why Chris keeps talking about a suite.
Yeah, Rich was really worried that the building was going to burn down, and there would be like Joe Lanza and you and Kelly left to run the site, and like Kevin and Robin, and like it was going to be a real thin staff from there on out.
There were so many people there. Yeah. I mean, I would have gone to this if I wasn't going on vacation literally a week later. I mean, that's really all. It's not like, oh, John hates AEW, that's why they weren't there. I just have a vacation in a week, so it felt very stupid to. I still looked up some flight prices at the last minute, but like they were too expensive. But yeah, it was that I'm going on vacation in a week, and it felt very dumb to fly to Chicago a week before I fly elsewhere. So what are you gonna do? In hindsight, I wish I went, but I didn't. So. But yeah, so the angle, we didn't even mention the angle. So they trade elbows and kicks. Suzuki put him down with a sleeper and then hit the Gotch style power driver. It was basically the exact
same angle, right?
They did at Wrestle Kingdom. Because it was the same thing. Moxley had just beaten somebody.
Yep. In
that case, he had just beaten Juice Robinson for the U.S. title. And then Suzuki's music hit and he came out and laid him out. And the crowd again went crazy because they didn't think Suzuki was going to be, because Suzuki was not booked on either night of Wrestle Kingdom that year. This was 2020. And so Wrestle Kingdom 14, I think, or no, way later than that. What am I talking
Oh
about?
yeah, that was 14.
Oh, it's 14. Okay.
Yeah, because this
I had it right the
year's
first time. This year's 15. This past year was 15.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
next
so that's
year is
14.
16. Yeah. Anyway, so 14, he comes out, the crowd goes crazy because they weren't expecting to get to hear his entrance because he wasn't booked on either night. And he lays out Moxley, and they do the match the next month at New Beginning, which was an incredible match. I went like 4.5 stars on it. We'll see what the Dynamite one from this week can match up to that. But yeah, I mean, it was really good. Really good angle. I don't really blame them for just running it back again. And the crowd went crazy. So
yeah, as it was happening, I was like, oh, if he hits the gotcha, it's like I was sitting in the street. I was like, this is the same thing they'd already did, and I was like, and it's still awesome. And the match,
yeah, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, no, I was like,
great...
sure, it worked in Japan. Run it back in America. Do the same exact thing. Don't even reverse it. Don't even have Moxley lay him out. Just have Suzuki lay him out and call it a day. I mean, that's the simplicity of that booking. You build the match.
They have to do it promo with Suzuki subtitles at some point. I don't know if it's on Dynamite or it's just a fucking Road to or something, because he is like one of the all-time greatest Japanese promos. They have to do it. They have to do a promo. Let Suzuki cut a promo on Moxley, subtitled.
I do wonder if that's got a main event, that Dynamite, right?
Unless they have something with Danielson or Cole, I guess.
They would have announced that, you'd think. Moxley in his hometown, I feel like you throw that on last, and it's awesome.
Yeah. And
they could book that match the same way they did the first match, and I'd be cool with it. Because that match made my top 10, I think.
Yeah, that match was awesome. The opener of the pay-per-view was for the TNT title. Miro defeated Eddie Kingston in 13:22 to retain. We're almost going 2 hours just on this show. So I will say very quickly here, I thought this was a great match. I mean, they beat the crap out of each other. They told a very simple story where Miro was dominant. Eddie kept trying to fight back. He kept getting cut off by one good shot from Miro. And the pop when Kingston made the bottom rope when Miro got the game over locked in was awesome. The only thing I didn't like about this match was the finish, which was, it just took so long to set this up with his turnbuckle pad getting taken off and Bryce putting it back on and then actually knocking it off again. And then, Eddie going to ram Eddie goes to ram him into the fucking turnbuckle. Bryce stops him, and that lets Miro low blow Kingston and then hit 2 straight kicks for the win. I mean, I just thought the finish, and again, this has always been my big problem with AEW, is these finishes are really goofy. That finish did not match the tone of the match at all to me. I mean, these two guys, just killing each other. I wish they just let Miro beat him clean. And I get the idea maybe they're going to do a rematch in Queens or something, but you could do a rematch after Miro beats him clean. It's not like anyone's going to fucking complain. So, I don't know. I just thought it was completely tonally off from the rest of the match. The setup for it took forever. So that knocked it down to 3 3/4 for me. I still thought it was great, but it was like trending at 4, maybe even like 4 1/4 before they went into the really overcomplicated finish. So, what are you going to do?
At some point during the match, I thought they might go time limit because they had announced the 20-minute time limit and they actually did a 10-minute call. And I was like, oh, that's a cue that they're going to do.
Oh, they always do the 10-minute call.
Not on the rest of the matches.
For the 20-minute time limit matches, I feel like
maybe for the 20-minute time limit matches, which is not many of the matches, I suppose. But
yeah, I think it's a TNT title thing.
Okay, cool, great. Yeah. Well, I thought they might go time limit. They obviously did not. The match was good. It was hot in the building. I think the finish ties into Eddie Kingston saying "redeem D's nuts" the other night, and I think the low they wanted to get to a low blow so that there could be a "I redeemed your nuts" tweet later from Miro. Like, I do think that all kind of tied together, as contrived as that may be.
There were better ways to set up a low blow than what they did.
Yeah, the whole Bryce misses the pin because he's fucking around trying to get the.
They make their referees look so fucking stupid in this company.
They do.
Like New Japan level, maybe worse, honestly.
Well, Bryce especially, like, he just plays it up like he's this big dopey idiot that never knows what's happening anywhere around him. But that's how referees in wrestling are in a lot of places. I don't think that's exclusive to AEW or New Japan. But yeah, so I would love to see a rematch in Queens. I think that's the right thing to do with Eddie Kingston. And
as a ticket holder, I agree with you.
I think somehow you get him to win too.
Yeah.
Because that's a moment. Because I don't know, the other option I think was going to be Santana and Ortiz to do something, and maybe and they will, I'm sure, but maybe not a title change in that way. So, and I don't think you can get Eddie Kingston into the AEW World Title, situation yet. So I think you try to build that back and somehow get to that. But who knows? They probably have a lot of plans for Queens in 2 weeks.
In 3, I think it's 2 weeks.
2 Dynamites, right?
Yeah. There's 3 Dynamites. There's Cincinnati, then Newark, and then Queens.
So 2 Dynamites between now and then.
Yeah. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
The pre-show match, really not much to say here. Chuck Taylor, Jurassic Express, Orange Cassidy, and Wheeler Yuta beat the Hardy Family Office, the Hybrid 2, Private Party, and Matt Hardy in 9:26. I didn't think this was very good. I mean, there was some stuff here that looked horrible. I mean, the one spot especially was like Private Party did some kind of like double team flatliner on the other guy's knees on Orange Cassidy, and it looked really bad. I mean, I don't even really know what went wrong exactly, but like he basically landed at like quarter speed. The Blade got involved, and then Marco Stunt jumped on him, and everybody did their moves. But yeah, I don't know. I saw some people say this was good. I did not think it was good. I went like 2 1/4. I thought it was decidedly below average. It did get a little better down the stretch. But then the post-match saw the return of the Butcher. There you go. The biggest debut or return on the show, of course. The Butcher.
I'll say this. He got a better reaction than the last time I saw him in that building, which was his debut at the company, where everyone in that building was like, who?
The Butcher and the Blade.
The Butcher and the Blade showed up, and everyone expected it to be like some big thing, and it was just not. So at least people know who he is now. So that's a positive. I did think this was pretty much what you want from a pre-show match, which is just like kind of generic, exciting movement. But I could never see Private Party wrestle again, and it would be too soon. So, but I think they're just, everything's at half speed or wrong. I don't know. They still haven't put it together.
There you go. All right. So that's our very long All Out review, which almost took 2 hours. So we got to get right into New Japan, the Wrestle Grand Slam night 1 and 2. Before I get to the matches, the first thing I have to say about this, I saw so many incredibly stupid takes about the current state of New Japan after these shows took place. Here's what I want to say, first of all. The clap crowds. We do not need, I do not need to read a fucking 50-tweet thread from certain people on Twitter. I have to say, mostly the European contingent for some reason. Every time there's a major New Japan event, either happening or upcoming, which in this case was both. All these people imagine watching another G1 in front of clap crowds. Oh, I can't even imagine doing it. It's like, we get it. Nobody likes the clap crowds. There is no purpose to tweeting about how bad the clap crowds are, except, I guess, because you have to have something to tweet about. I just don't, I don't understand the point anymore. It's like, we all understand how bad the clap crowds are. There is nothing New Japan Pro Wrestling can do about the clap crowds. It is not their choice to have this. It is a culture and company-wide, culture-wide, countrywide, whatever you want to say. Everyone has to deal with the clap crowds. It is not something New Japan is choosing to do. It's not something anyone likes. We just talked about how Japanese wrestlers are coming over here to try to avoid it. It's just not. It just is not anything that anyone has any control over. So reading these tweets, it is like the most repetitive and stupid topic when it comes to wrestling Twitter. It has nothing. I mean, there's just nothing there. There's nothing to say about it anymore. So I don't know why the fuck people do it. The other argument I've seen people make is this idea that, well, if New Japan is has to have these clap crowds, which they do, again, the entire country has clap crowds and everything. If New Japan has to have these clap crowds, then they could at least do us all a favor and stop having long matches and go to 10-minute matches. Okay. Do you know how long this show would be if 5 matches were 10 minutes each? This show would be like an hour and 20 minutes if you had 5-10 minute matches. I am being generous for like entrance time and other stuff and intermission. If you say that's a half hour total, that is an hour and 20 minutes. Okay, people who are paying their money to go to these shows do not want to watch a 90-minute card. They just don't. I mean, they just don't want to watch the card. It's not something anyone wants to watch. No one wants to watch a 90-minute card. Okay, so this idea that they could just make these matches way shorter and make it work, it just doesn't make any sense. There's just no one's going to pay to see a 90-minute card. They have a hard enough time as it is convincing people to come to these shows. In the middle of Japan's biggest COVID outbreak of the entire pandemic so far. I mean, they're trying to draw fans, and clearly not doing a great job. I mean, we look at these two crowds. It was 2,095 and 2,780. So, in buildings I think could have hold 5,000. I mean, definitely can't say the, I mean, I see again some people taking, I think, a little too much from these crowds. I mean, the shows had no build at all because half the roster is out with COVID. I mean, it's just not a good situation in Japan right now when it comes to COVID-19. But when I read these people come on Twitter, and especially these people who live in America or the UK or all these other countries where we are about to have 700,000 people in America die of COVID-19, okay? I mean, not about to. We're gonna hit that number at some point. We have over 1,500 people dying daily of this disease. So yes, America has decided that that we don't care about COVID anymore and COVID's over. Japan has not decided that, clearly. Japan, has had, I believe, 16,000 COVID deaths total since the entire thing started. I'm not saying they handled it perfectly. Yeah, 16,369. But, getting on Twitter and complaining that another country is still treating the disease like it exists, which is what you're basically doing when you complain about the clap crowds, does not make any sense to me. It's like, yes, if they want to have, hundreds of thousands of people die like we have in this country, and like the UK's had too, since I saw a lot of complainers from the UK, they could fucking let people show up in full buildings and scream and do whatever the fuck else you're talking about. Clearly the way they've handled COVID so far has reduced the number of deaths. I mean, it looks like pretty much fact to me. So getting on Twitter and complaining about how a foreign country is handling this disease that's still out there when you're from a country that has utterly failed at preventing deaths from this disease is fucking stupid. It makes you look like somebody who has no idea what they're talking about. So Japan's vaccinating people as fast as they can. They're actually going to pass America in number of people vaccinated shortly, and hopefully people can cheer again at some point. I'm betting it'll be like next spring, probably at the earliest. But to get on Twitter and complain about the clap crowds, it's just such a fucking stupid argument to make. I'm tired of reading the tweet threads. It just fucking sucks. It doesn't do anyone any good. It is what it is. The situation is what it is over there. It's not going to change because you wrote your 500th tweet about it. I mean, that's about all I have to say about this. I don't know.
For my takes on this, I'll point everyone to the last time I was on Wrestling Omakase, and
you have to because it keeps coming up.
I know it does.
We've had 16 months of this, and people somehow still act like it's some fucking shock or like they don't know what's going on. I mean, clearly you should be used to it by now. I don't know what to tell you. Just don't watch New Japan. If you can't handle clap crowds right now, just don't watch New Japan. Don't tweet about it. Pretend it's not running, and then when it's coming back with real crowds again, whenever the fuck that will be, you can see if it's for you then. But clearly it's not for you while there's clap crowds. If the sound of people clapping so offends you that you cannot watch some really good matches over the course of these two shows, then clearly you can't handle New Japan right now. I don't know what else to tell you. There's nothing I can do to help you. So. And
also the matches on these two particular cards were not all that long.
They weren't that long. There was one match that was.
An 18-minute main event. We had an 18-minute main event.
There was one match that was egregiously long, but they did not go 30 plus like we've seen, or 35 plus. Like there was the main event on night 2 was exactly 30 almost. But yeah, there have been longer matches for sure recently. I did not have any problem with the match length except for one match, which I'm sure you could probably guess what it was. But yeah, I mean, there were some really good matches on these shows. There is still really good wrestling in this company. Okay, this company, this company had more matches on these two shows at a high level than All Out. Okay, that's my take. If you want to rate me over the coals for that one, you can. But this company had more great matches on these two shows than AEW had total. AEW is a great company, very exciting, but the in-ring style of New Japan is still better. The wrestling is still better. And if you are, out to see great matches more than you're out to see the sound of people cheering, I guess, or hear the sound of people cheering, then New Japan is still going to have plenty to offer for you. If you just cannot handle the clap crowds, I get it. But there is still great wrestling taking place across these shows. And, my match of the year list is still, I think, 6 out of 10 New Japan. And yeah, the booking isn't good. Clearly the booking has not been good during COVID. But I do still have sympathy for them. I mean, they look at all the problems they've had in the past month. They lost half the roster to COVID-19. I mean, I feel like that's the kind of thing nobody ever acknowledges when they're talking about this situation. I mean, they were without the entire LIJ unit except for one guy. They were without Kota Ibushi for 2 months. They were without, Evil, the main event challenger of the second show. I mean, they lost a ton of talent during the build of this show. How can you book anything long term when you never know who you're going to have available because of this disease? I mean, as long as they're actually going to treat this disease like it still exists, which America is clearly not doing, I mean, they're gonna have issues. I mean, they're just, you're comparing a country that is still treating a pandemic like a pandemic to a country, promotion that gets to run in a country that's just operating like there is no pandemic anymore. Have 1,500 dead people a day, be damned. I mean, it's no comparison. Obviously, AEW is going to be more exciting when they're allowed to run in a country that's open versus New Japan. That's just how it is. So you can talk to me when it's a fair comparison, when New Japan's actually open. And the comparisons are so stupid anyway, because the two companies are friends now anyway. They're trading talent. I mean, New Japan's sending guys over there. Bryan Danielson says he wants to go to New Japan when the quarantine's over. I don't know why people pop on Twitter and AEW's using New Japan guys better than New Japan uses them. It's yes, one company can run without any restrictions and one company can't. It's not exactly a fair comparison. One company is ice cold because they can't have people cheer in the building, and one company is red hot because they can, and they have a million jumps going on too. So yes, obviously AEW is hotter right now, but other than that, the comparisons are very stupid. Anyway.
The cool thing is you're allowed to watch both.
Yes, that too, obviously.
So here I am. I'm I had a great weekend watching AEW. I had a great weekend also watching New Japan. I get up and watch these shows live, almost all of them. Any of the big ones, I do not get up and watch Road 2 shows live. But these shows I was up and I watched them as they happened, and they're the best. It's still the best in-ring wrestling on the planet. The most exciting wrestling on the planet? Sure. Yeah, that's AEW right now. But you know what's going to be really cool? When those AEW guys who want to come over to New Japan, they make surprise appearances in Japan. And that's going to be the next thing that's going to be the thing that happens that everyone's going to be really excited about. And I might search your Twitter and find when you were talking shit. So
that is going to happen.
It's absolutely going to happen.
When the world reopens, people will go both ways. I mean, that's a thing that will happen. So,
and New Japan is smart, and they're going to do it as surprises the same way AEW does it as surprises. And Bryan Danielson's going to show up and announce himself for something cool. And it's going to make huge waves. And Jericho's probably going to come back, and Moxley's going to come back to Japan, and God knows who else, right? Is going to pop up just in Japan to do something really cool. So this is not a one-way relationship, and it has been so far, pretty much.
Yeah, because of the way no one can get a fucking visa. No one can get a visa. Clearly, when things get better, things will be different. But I mean,
it's going to be wild when things get better. My I guess maybe that's a bold prediction, but the crossover I think is going to be insane for a little while because it's fun.
And you talk to people. I mean, they have plans.
There's a lot of plans.
I mean, you talk to even more people than I do. I talk to some people, and they have concrete ideas for what will happen when the world reopens. I mean, this is not the two of us sitting here speculating. There is gonna be stuff, and people will go crazy for it. So your tweets about how New Japan is dead, RIP, is gonna look pretty fucking stupid whenever the company can actually reopen and use the relationships to its fullest. Just like how Minoru Suzuki coming out on a pay-per-view at random is super in front of a cheering crowd is very exciting. The reverse will also be true. I mean, things will be exciting in Japan again too. But these weird people who just really want to bury, like, there's some people who just want to bury New Japan at this point when, I mean, like, literally, like, throw dirt on them and say they're dead. There's some people who just want to bury Japanese wrestling and say it's dead. And it's like, no, I mean, the world will change. It's not like this pandemic's going to last forever. So
I would absolutely still rather watch these two New Japan shows than some dusty ass warehouse Rev Pro show. And I like some of those wrestlers on Rev Pro, but that atmosphere sucks too. So get the fuck out.
Yeah, I mean, some of the fucking takes are just so stupid. You could tell like these people have been saving it up for a long time, and and I don't know, like, it's just there's some. I mean, I'm not exactly. I don't think I'm a reflexive New Japan defender. I call out their shit when I think their shit sucks, but there is plenty of good matches on these two shows. I mean, they just, if you don't think they were, then maybe you really shouldn't be watching New Japan for a while. The main event of night one was Hiroshi Tanahashi defeating Kota Ibushi in 1747 with the high fly flow. He makes his first defense of the U.S. heavyweight title. So they debuted a list of the U.S. champions before the main event. That was really cool.
That was cool.
They're just going to do that. They're going to do that for any belt, I guess, when that belt is main eventing a show. So, that was a cool little list there. This, of course, was Kota Ibushi's first match back from his long-term illness absence. He last wrestled on July 2nd, almost exactly 2 months ago, when he beat Yota Tsuji at Korakuen. Tanahashi, at one point he goes for the high fly flow. He hit Ibushi's knees, and Ibushi immediately grabbed his arms and hit the Kamigoe. Immediately might be a little too strong. He did have to let go of them and then grab them again, because I guess he got twisted up or something, but I still thought it looked pretty cool. And we got the 15-minute call when they were both down from that one. And then Tanahashi smartly was crossing his own wrists to block a second Kamigoe, and that gave him enough time to push Ibushi back and hit a sling blade that Kota, of course, took directly down on his neck. Anyone thought Kota was going to chill out at all from the 2 months away? He did not. It's a very sick bump. And Kota kicked out of the resulting cover at 1. He made that great I'm hurt but also pissed face that he does sometimes, directly at the camera. But then he ate a dragon suplex hold for a near fall. And then Tanahashi hit the high fly flow crossbody, then hit the one to the front. And that was the pin. I like the finish a lot. He just kind of hit a big flurry and put Kota away, which you don't always see in New Japan. Sometimes they go back and forth a lot. And here it was just I think part of the idea was supposed to be that Kota was still a little rusty after 2 months off, and you can't just come back and beat a guy like Tanahashi. But, I thought this was pretty awesome. I went 4 stars flat on it. They've definitely had better matches, but I still thought this was quite a lot of fun.
Yeah, they've had better. I mean, the G128 finals, one of the best matches of all time. So you can't keep up with that, right? But yeah, I think the idea was that Kota hadn't come back. Clearly, Kota and Tanahashi were both very emotional, both in the entrances and after the match. So I, would have to speculate that things were worse for Kota Ibushi than anyone might have thought, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that illness really encompasses, or how bad it can be, but that said something to me. So Good to get him back into the ring, probably with a safe opponent like Tanahashi. Didn't need any build. You don't need any build for those two guys to get in the ring and have a good match. 17 minutes, 17:47, 2 minutes longer than their last match that they had G129. So, people complaining about that being short, which was the ironic thing that I ran into. Truthfully, literally found someone complaining or questioning it. At least I was like, hey, I mean, this is not unprecedented between these two anyway, because that's the data that I have. Honestly, look at these guys and say they're getting ready for the G1. So they had a G1 length match. And it was good. It was as good as, these guys are two of the best in the world. Of course it was good. Could it have been better? Sure. Could they have had a build? Could it have meant more? Absolutely. But maybe it was more meaningful for them to get out there and do this in these circumstances. So, and honestly, the U.S. title, maybe it wasn't worth fighting longer for. I don't know where they're going to position that title. So, this wasn't the G1 finals. So, yeah, you go half the time. But
Tanahashi said his post-match he wants to, as the champion, come back to America. So I think that's what people would expect him to do.
Sure.
But yeah.
Oh, yeah. And, I think the plan's probably this is probably the only defense before the G1. The G1 will run you right up to whatever the Power Struggle Tour is. And then you've got Power Struggle and the whatever they're called, Battle in the Valley, the San Jose show. So he'll probably make it to the San Jose show as the champ.
Match number 4, the semi-main, was Jeff Cobb defeating Kazuchika Okada in 27-41 with the Tour of the Islands. I thought this was really good. There were a couple of things I didn't love about it. There was first of all, I'm really over the money clip, and Okada went back to it again here against Cobb, right around the 20-minute mark. And, the setup to get Okada on the top rope toward the end of the match, I thought was a little convoluted and slowed the match down a bit too much for me. So that brought it down to like a 3 3/4 when I had been thinking like 4 stars before that. But still a lot of fun. The big headbutt that Cobb did at the very end where, he just kind of like hit this big rising headbutt once Okada got to the top rope. Because the setup, right, for him to get the top rope was like, they went for a lot of reversals towards the end. Like Cobb, I thought they went a little too many reversals where it left Cobb a little bit winded on the top rope by the time Okada put him there. And they didn't have much to do besides Cobb just like sitting up there sucking wind. And then Okada very slowly tried to do something from up there before Cobb finally escaped on the apron and super kicked him. And I just thought that whole thing like grounded the match to a halt when it had been picking up momentum before that. But the thing it set up was great. I mean, the Avalanche style Tour of the Islands from the top rope looked awesome. And then Cobb did a, second regular Tour of the Islands that almost seemed a little unnecessary, honestly. And that got the pin. But yeah, 3 3/4, a lot of fun, other than that complaint, I guess, towards the end. And it was nice to see Cobb finally break through here with a huge win. And, it obviously can set up a rubber match since they both have a win over each other recently. So.
Yeah, I love that Cobb won this. I think that builds him towards the G1. I'm so curious what his G1 is going to look like, and I'm sure we'll touch on that at least a little bit. But he's kind of the guy on the G1 roster that I'm most curious. Like, is he going to go 8-1, or is he going to go 5-4, or is he going to go 4-5? Like, where's this guy in the pecking order of singles heavyweight? So him having a win over Okada in recent history, you got to figure that's going to play into something. And it means something, maybe. But yeah, this was a great match. These guys put it together. I liked it better than their last match that they had what was that, a month and a half ago. I think this one played out just so much with more weight behind it. And I think maybe the build was better, but ultimately, like the in-ring, these 27 minutes were great. Just a really good, well-worked match. No major complaints here.
Between matches 3 and 4, we got the announcement of Wrestle Kingdom 16. First of all, confirming the Tokyo Dome will be available. There was a lot of speculation it wouldn't be due to renovations. But it's 3 nights this time. It's nights 1 and 2 in the Tokyo Dome, January 4th and 5th, plus a third night on January 8th in the Yokohama Arena as part of the 50th anniversary, since that was a building that New Japan once had a lot of history with. So, makes sense for 50th anniversary kind of thing. I did see a lot of people dunking on this. I will say I'm very interested to see what that third night looks like. Will it be a real, like, everything's building for the third night, or will it be a bigger, rebranded New Year's Dash? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and I've asked around to see if I can get some information on whether they're still also having New Year's Dash. So, because that would then probably be on the 6th, which would then leave the 7th open, and then the 8th. And I don't know.
Nobody seems to know.
Yeah, I can't get a firm answer, so I don't want to say more than that.
Okay. Match 3. I'm not going to belabor this one. It's Toru Yano beat Chase Owens in an I Quit match to become the KOBW 2021 holder. It went 28-03. I hated this. I mean, I saw some people argue it wasn't as bad as they were expecting a 28-minute match between these two to be. I just don't care about any of this. I don't need to see. I don't watch New Japan for I Quit matches. I don't watch New Japan to see people be handcuffed with things and whipped with belts and all that. I just really did not care. I mean, I went with the dud on it. Chase, lost because Yano was threatening to stab him with scissors. I mean, I don't know. Just don't ever need to see this in New Japan. It's just not my thing. I'm never going to be in this title. Never going to be in these matches. And the 28 minutes kind of felt like 28 hours. And actually, no, I gave them half a star. I'm sorry. They get half a star and they like it. That's as far as I'm willing to go.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about that.
You did not enjoy it either.
Yeah, I same deal though. This is just whatever. If these guys want to go 28 minutes in like a normal match and put on the best match that either of them can put on, I think that would be way better than this, like, I'm going to set up a ladder bridge and, I don't know.
It's just not what I watch New Japan.
Yeah, it's what I watch AEW for. I guess maybe I compartmentalize too much. And I don't particularly mind either of these wrestlers as singles guys. But this style, the anything goes kind of thing is not what I come here for. And I don't think New Japan's particularly good at it. I think there's been one match of that style that's been good, and I think it was Ospreay and Kojima earlier this year. In recent history, at least. I'm sure I could go back and find a few more, but that's the one that was the perfect example of it. That I was like, oh, that can be good here, but this wasn't that.
There was a Tenzan Iizuka match I remember people liking way back in the day. That's quite old now.
That's like 2008, maybe.
Yeah, or maybe a little after that, maybe like 09 or 10.
Yeah,
but yeah, pretty a long time ago now. Match number 2, Sho defeats Yo in 24-41 by a referee stoppage. First of all, Sho's Evil Gamer remix song was pretty great. What I think, I'll give Emily Pratt credit because she was the one who said this. She said it was like the meanest video of all time, the meanest interest video of all time, because it's just like Sho turning on Yo, and then like the continue or end from like a game, and it goes to end, and it's like, yes, he ends his relationship with Yo. It's like just the entire video is basically Sho saying "fuck you" to Yo. So it's like the meanest entrance video ever too to go with it. So that was really cool. I didn't like his new look as much, and it gave away what he was.
Yeah, the new look was it was a pretty obvious tell.
Yeah, he was wearing some kind of like black and purple Renaissance cosplay, and it really gave away the fact that he was joining Bullet Club, which I was not happy about, I have to say. His evil face is just as goofy looking as when he made the turn as well. But as a match, I thought this was good. I saw some people who really didn't like it. And I don't know. I thought it was, I liked it quite a bit. I mean, there was some stuff that was boring. You could say maybe he went a little bit too long. And the one thing is like, Sho, like to me, the heel Sho thing, especially with the unit he joins, obviously with House of Torture and Bullet Club, it feels like we're going to miss his like shoot style grappling that really helped him stand out in New Japan, because now he'll be doing like, more generic heel who cheat stuff and whipping people into barricades and stuff, which New Japan has plenty of people that do that. I don't really need more of that. But so that's a downer. But as far as like the actual match goes, I thought this really picked up after the 15-minute call. Sho hit several German suplexes on Yo and went after his arm. Yo kept escaping and hit his own really big German that dropped Sho on his head. Sho no-selled it and hit a great lariat. So great sequence there. They just kind of kept going though, and they kind of missed their peak, I thought. And they went past the 20-minute mark. We got the ref bump. Sho pushed Yo into the ref in the corner. He hit a spear on him. He went to the outside and grabbed a chair. Yo ducked the chair shot, super kicked him, and then picked up the chair, but couldn't bring himself to use it on Sho. I did like that moment. I mean, Sho begging off and Yo just being like, I can't quite bring myself to fucking brain my partner, even though he's being an asshole to me lately. So he just drops the chair and super kicks him again, and then goes for the double arm DDT he's been doing lately. But Sho low blows him, breaks the chair right over his head, of course, and pulls him up a 2 on the cover, which I liked a lot as well. It was like a great dick move. And then locked him in the triangle, and the referee stopped the match to give Show the win. Show would not let go of the hold. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of like, Yo was too nice, basically. Didn't like bury him or anything. I thought he looked pretty good. I mean, the big thing for Yo in this match is Yo had shown like almost no fire since his return, that he looked like a guy who just was going through the motions. He showed a lot of fire in this match. So this match was almost made me more feel better about Yo than it did about Show, especially with where Show is going now. Like, this match was like the most positive sign for Yo I've had since his return. He looked like a different wrestler than he looked, since the Roppongi 3K reunion. I mean, he looked like he was fired up out there. He looked like he was having a good time getting to beat up Show, and he did some really good selling as well. So if anything, I'm more optimistic about Yo going forward as a single junior babyface. But I thought this was a good match. I went 3.5. I don't regret watching it at all, but it's definitely going to give more ammo to the New Japan matches are too long crowd, because I did think it went a little long.
Yeah, I mean, Show. I think they established both characters really well by having this match, which, like, I thought Yo was just buried coming out of the Junior Tag League and the turn from Show, and then honestly, like, if you just look at the result from this match, you're like, wow, they really are just shoveling dirt on Yo, because you almost figure maybe he was going to win this, and that was going to be the redemption after taking all the falls and all that. But I think you're right. Like, he looked good. If you watch the match, he looks like he had a lot to go with. I am curious if, like, Yo sticks with Chaos or if he lands somewhere else. And is this a long-term generational feud with Yo and Show now after their big long-term kind of generational tag team? But yeah, I mean, I think Show looked like a badass evil, like evil, no pun intended. He looked like he belongs with House of Torture. Is that right?
Yeah. As Shingo Takagi calls them, House of Pancakes.
House of Pancakes.
That's what he calls them in an interview afterwards. He was like, I can't remember their name. House of Pancakes? Like, no, House of Torture. Oh, okay.
Shingo loves breakfast.
Shingo's so great.
He's a gift.
House of Pancakes.
But yeah, so I think that, maybe it went a little long, but maybe that was just part, like, maybe it could have ended earlier and Show just wanted to keep going. We saw that, so that was part of it too. So good match, good story. Curious where it goes next. Glad these guys broke up and I don't have to watch them as a boring junior tag team anymore.
Indeed. Afterwards, Show cut a short promo. He basically told Yo to retire again. He literally kicked him out of the ring slowly, which I thought was a good heel move. And then Evil, Dick Togo, and Yujo Takahashi came out with their new House of Torture shirts with the little Bullet Club logo on the sleeves. So it's a new Bullet Club subunit. Look, is this good? No, it is not. I'm not happy. I'm not excited for this at all. I really thought he was going to go for United Empire before he came out in the black and purple gear, because that just felt like a unit that, first of all, has 2 people in Japan right now. I mean, Okan and Cobb. They have no juniors at all in Japan or America or New Zealand, I guess, where Hanare is. And so they could have used the junior. And I really like the idea of, like, Great Okan and Show as these two, like, the 2 biggest shooters in New Japan, like as a little heel shooter tag, heavyweight and junior tag team. I really like that idea. So, that's what I thought we were going to get. Instead, we're getting Show in the fucking House of Torture and another Bullet Club Civil War apparently on the way, which is, like, just horrible. I mean, I cannot bury that idea enough. I could not care less about the idea of Evil's House of Torture versus Jay White's Bullet Club. It's just, like, nothing I want to see. So,
well, they might end up babyfacing the regular Bullet Club at least a little bit, which they already are in America. So,
yeah,
I guess that's fine.
I just want the entire thing to go away forever. Maybe if the Evil group breaks off and can just be their own terrible unit. That's
kind of what I was wondering. It's like, can this actually just split?
Yeah.
Like, not a civil war that ends up not ending. Can we actually just, like, can they be their own little, like, super heel unit, like the most heely of heels?
Yeah. The people who suck.
Also that. I mean, they'd need Show's good.
Yeah, Show's good.
Show's good. But the Bullet Club always has good juniors.
Yeah, that's true. Match number 1 was a tag team match. Robbie Eagles and Tiger Mask, the Flying Tiger tag team, defeating Hiromu Takahashi and Bushi. Eagles submitting Bushi at 11:40 with the Ron Miller special. I thought this was setting up Hiromu winning on the next night. It was not. We're setting up a junior tag title shot for Flying Tiger instead. But yeah, I thought this was not a lot to say here. Pretty fun. I thought like 3 1/4. Nothing you got to go anywhere to see or anything, but enjoyable enough if you do watch it.
Yeah, I love Robbie Eagles and Hiromu, so anytime those guys are in the same ring, I'm for it.
Too, which we're about to get
Yeah,
to.
right. Well,
the Stardom opener, first of all, it was great that these matches were somehow allowed to air on New Japan World finally. I mean, that was just really, really cool. So Saya Kamitani and Momo Watanabe defeated Lady C and Maika. Kamitani defeated Lady C in 12:02 with the Phoenix Splash. This was a lot of fun. I thought a good showing from the Stardom girls. Maika especially got to show off her power. She did like a double suplex. Momo got to show off just her brand of stiff wrestling. Really kicked the shit out of Maika and Lady C. And then Kamitani, she really, kind of got to show off her agility, with like her multiple handstands to escape Lady C at one point before hitting a dropkick. Lady C got to show off the fact that she is, in fact, very tall for a Japanese woman, I guess. I mean, she's less than a year into this, and she didn't look bad or anything. But compared to the other 3, I mean, the other 3 all look great, and she was just kind of there. They call her the Human Tower. I mean, I get it because she's much tall. She's 5'10", and the average Japanese woman, I guess, is 5'3". But like, I am 6'1", and I do not feel like a human tower, I have to say. So I don't know how somebody 3 inches shorter than me is a human tower. Maybe it's just me nitpicking her name. But every time I hear the Human Tower, Lady C, I'm just like, let's pump the brakes. She's not 7 feet tall. But anyway, there's a nice spot towards the end with Saya Kamitani reversing an attempted chokeslam off the top from Lady C into a Hurricanrana. But they both timed that very well. And then Momo and Saya hit a double team diving knee attack off the second rope. Setup was a little goofy, but then they absolutely crush her. It doesn't look so goofy at that point. And then Kamitani hits the Phoenix Splash for the pin. Again, quite a bit of fun. Lady C, she definitely doesn't look as green as she used to, even though she doesn't really stand out either other than her height. But we'll see what she can add to her repertoire later. But yeah, I went 3.5. I thought this was good.
I enjoyed this very much. I was glad this was on the show. I hope they do a ton more of this. I thought Kamitani was awesome. That was kind of my big takeaway. I'd never seen her. I love a good.
She's also quite tall for Japanese.
Yeah, I actually had the thought that there were a couple of tall women that are typically short. I mean, like Joshi wrestlers are usually shorter in my experience.
Stardom I think is filled with taller ladies.
Sure.
Maika is like, I think 5'5", which is, still taller than the average. And then like you have these two, 5'8" and 5'10". I think, what's her name? Jumbo. God, I can't remember her name. She's in Donna Del Mundo. She wasn't on these 2 shows. But she's like 5'8", I think. Or 5'7" or 5'8". And they have a couple other ones. Like I think Julia is 5'5" or 5'6". And
yeah.
A lot of tall. There's a bunch of other ones. A lot of tall ladies in this company.
Yeah, so I think the English commentators did as good a job as they possibly could. I know they were having some tech issues during the first match, but yeah, I think, and I know for a fact that they really enjoyed being on the call for it and being able to broadcast these live. So hopefully we see more of that in the future.
Himeka is the one I was thinking of. She's Jumbo. She's 5'7". So there you go.
Yeah,
that's the one I was. The former Himeka Arita. Anyway, so there probably multiple people listening to screaming at their phones, so I wanted to make sure I pointed out who it was. Night 2. So night 1 I thought was a good show. I mean, there was one match that was bad. Everything else here was good. I don't really know where people are getting bad show from this unless they really only watched Chase Owens and Toriano. But I thought it was a good show.
The atmosphere is challenging. I mean, I have to say, I don't love that they're trying to run these dome shows with 2,000 people in them. Like they're basically running like a field, right? Like they're not putting anyone in the grandstands or any of the sloped seating, or very, very few in the actual seating. They're basically just running the field of these domes. And I have some sympathy for that, and I have some understanding for the challenge. Plus, these particular dome shows, these 3 Wrestle Grand Slam shows, they're not doing like stage lighting like they did at Wrestle Kingdom. They which looked good, and you'd never would have known that there was only 6,000 or 7,000 people there. I guess you would know that it's not 40,000 people, but the atmosphere wasn't this. At these dome shows, they're just using the stadium lights, and so you see all these empty seats.
Yeah, the atmosphere is not great.
The atmosphere is not great. Like I'm not, but also like the wrestling was great for a lot of these matches. So, or at least as expected. So I get I get it, but also the matches are still good. The stories are still good. The wrestlers are still good. Where we're going is still the G1, and that's going to be good. So that's my take on that, I guess, while we're in between shows here.
Night 2, main evented by the IWGP World Heavyweight title. Shingo Takagi defeating Evil in 30-20 with the Last of the Dragon. I guess my hot take coming into this was going to be, I don't think it was as bad as people seem to be saying on Twitter. I mean, I didn't think this was good or anything. I didn't think this was good or great at all. I don't love the Evil dynamic and everything like everybody else, I think. What I will say, and because this is a point I definitely want to remember to make, on average, New Japan does less interference than AEW. I mean, they just do. They really contain it now to only a few matches across, even sometimes only one match on a card, versus what they were doing earlier in the year. I mean, they've really cut back on the amount of interference. If you're looking for clean fight wrestling, like clean matches, clean finishes, no interference, you could get it on like 3 out of 5 matches on this show. And even the other one that had interference, the junior tag title match, it had cheating. The junior tag title match didn't have any interference. So if you're just looking for no interference, you can get it in the vast majority of matches on this show and the show from the prior night, which I think had it in. Did anybody interfere in Chase versus John? I don't think they did. I think there was no interference at all.
No, I don't think anyone got involved in that.
So you're talking about 9 out of 10 matches on these 2 shows had no interference at all. So I do think people really make too big a deal out of the interference in New Japan at this point. Yes, Evil still does it because that's his whole thing, but it really does not happen very often in New Japan matches at this point, especially compared to the promotion that's everybody's fucking, everybody's favorite promotion right now. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be, again, for the 10,000th time, but it is weird to me how much people are willing to overlook the amount of interference, and even they even do stupid distraction finishes on Dynamite sometimes. That's what really drives me crazy. I'm not a type who really cares that much about interference. I mean, it can piss me off depending on how it's done, but I'm not I don't automatically think it sucks every time. But the distraction finishes, which AEW really does way too often, those are the ones where if I was running a wrestling promotion, they would be completely banned. I mean, distraction finishes always look stupid. They always make your wrestler look like an idiot for just paying more attention to some random person who's on the outside than they are their opponent in the match. So, I mean, I would get rid of those completely. But yeah, you're talking 9 out of 10 matches here with no interference, which is one of these things where I think people make way too big of a deal out of the amount of interference in New Japan at this point. It's pretty much contained to one unit, and even with that unit, it's really contained to Evil at this point.
It's at this point now the subunit, probably.
Yeah, the subunit. So it's I don't know. I think people have made way too big a deal out of it, but it did suck here. I mean, it was all the normal stuff, I don't even really feel like recapping this match.
Yeah, there's nothing to recap. This was the almost good version of an Evil match because you had Shingo Takagi also involved. That's the best way I can describe it.
The funniest spot to me was when Togo used the Spoilers choker on Shingo, and Yujiro then ran in and hit the Pimp Juice. First he hit with the cane, and then he hit the Pimp Juice DDT, and Evil covered off of that, and it was okay, Shingo Takagi, if he is in fact going to lose the IWGP World Heavyweight title here, I don't think it will be to Yujiro Takahashi's finisher. It's just a hunch. So I thought that was a pretty stupid near fall. But I'm yeah, You can hit him with whatever the fuck you want to hit him with first. He is not losing to Yujiro's finisher. So.
But I will be honest, when I was watching this match, there were a couple of moments where I was like, oh shit, they're really going to do this. They're really
I was unspoiled, so I thought so too.
Yeah, and I was live. So I was like, damn, they're really, like, Yujiro hits him with the cane and then the thing. And I was like, damn, they're really going to run this back again, aren't they? But
apparently Togo wanted to.
I mean, that's the rumor. Yeah, of course he wanted to. He wants to be in the main event scene. He's tired of watching his boy lose.
But yeah, Shingo. So Togo came back with a choker, but then Shingo's fellow COVID sufferer in Lij, Bushi, ran out to make the save. I thought it was funny that Bushi was the first one to run out. It's like, we went through this disease together. I got your back. He cleaned house and everybody in the ring, and Sho then took him out, though, with a deadlift German, and then broke a chair over Shingo's head, just like he did to Yo the night before. But when he went for shock arrow, Naito and Sonata finally showed up to take him out, and then Togo went to use the belt on Naito. Naito stopped and took him out, and he got low blowed from behind by his old pal Evil, which I like that spot. It was like, remember this, Naito? Remember when I used to hit you in the balls regularly? Here you go. Shingo puts Evil away pretty quickly after that. Puts a big combination together to put him down. I went 2 3/4. I mean, that might be generous, but I thought the parts of this were fun. It was cool seeing Shingo overcome the heels with help from Lij. I mean, I thought part of this worked. I mean, the Mark part of my brain enjoyed watching Shingo overcome all the odds here. TM John Cena. But it just took forever to get there. Featured too many goofy ref bumps. They really should at least try to keep it to 1 ref bump per match. I do agree with that criticism, instead of doing them repeatedly in the same match. But it is what it is. It was an evil main event. It was certainly not the worst evil main event I've ever seen. I think I thought the one with Okada earlier this year was worse than this for sure.
Terrible.
But, yeah, this was all right. The highest praise I can give it.
Yeah, I got nothing more.
There's been better evil main events too, though. Some of the Naito ones are better than this. So, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, when he had 4 shots with someone, they figured out the right amount of things to do.
The power struggle one was perfect. I mean, that's probably as good as an evil this version of evil main event's going to get. I mean, that match was just flat out awesome. It's a match that nobody saw because everybody was so tired.
Pretty
America
down on that, yeah.
On seeing, but I maintain that if you actually go and watch that match with an open mind, it is the best one they ever did. So, not just for Evil and Naito, but just the best, this version of Evil match they ever did. So, the semi-main event, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title, Robbie Eagles defeating Hiromu Takahashi in 24:07 with the Ron Miller special to retain the junior title, make his first defense. This was match of the weekend, I thought, across all 3 shows.
Absolutely.
Including All Out. I mean, this was just so good. They went, back and forth really quickly right from the start. Robbie hit this sudden knee drop to Hiromu's leg that sent him out to the floor. Hiromu, hit this big time bomb and hits the time bomb, hits a huge lariat, which Eagles takes this great flying bump for. He then set Eagles up in an inverted DDT position and hit some kind of crazy new head drop move. Basically flipped Eagles up and over before dropping him directly on the top of his head. Just sick as hell. He set up for the time bomb 2 after that. Eagles sort of kicked his legs and managed to force Hiromu to carry him to the corner. I thought that was a very clever counter. Hiromu just went for that flipping top rope bomb he does, but Eagles hooked his legs around the ring post to block, then leapt down in the ring himself and hit this nice step-up kick, and then another drop kick to Hiromu's leg he had been working on earlier that was hanging in the corner. He went back up there, hit an avalanche-style turbo backpack, which also looked great.
Oh, that was awesome.
And Hiromu kicked out. And then Eagles hit a couple super kicks to him, hit the 450 splash to the leg. He locked in the Ron Miller special. Hiromu's selling here was so fucking good. I mean, Hiromu Takahashi is, in my mind, before the injury, he was the best wrestler in the world. And I think he came back between the Doki match, which was even better than this match. I haven't reviewed that on audio for anything. If you did not watch that match he returned with against Doki at Cork and Hall a week or 2 ago now, that is an absolute must watch. If you're skipping I don't care if you're skipping every other Road to match. That match was 4.5 stars. It was absolutely incredible. I put it like 9th place in my top 10 match of the year list. I mean, just a really, really incredible match. Cannot recommend that one enough. But, he's just Hiromu here in this Ron Miller special. He's selling, he's thrashing, he's acting like he's going to tap at any moment. He almost makes the ropes again. Eagles like pulls him back more than once actually. Then he kicks him and drops a knee on the leg and reapplies it. And Hiromu's just going crazy. And finally has no choice but to tap out. And Robbie Eagles retains the title. A huge win for him, obviously. And Hiromu just sold the leg all the way at the end of the match too. I went 4.25. I thought, Hiromu. The only real complaint I have with this match is I thought Hiromu's leg selling was a little bit too off and on at points earlier in the match. There was a little bit too much running he did at one point after Eagles had worked over the leg. But his selling in that final Ron Miller special almost made up for it because it was so good. I like the story too that he just couldn't get the job done here and wasn't able to take the belt back on his first try, which sets up a longer chase for him that's probably more interesting. So this is just so good.
I love this. Robbie Eagles might be my favorite junior in New Japan or available to New Japan. So whenever he's around, I thought he had a great Best of Super Juniors last year. I loved the run he had with Osprey and Birds of Prey and all that. And, the more we can get of him in the New Japan Junior division, I think the more interesting the division is. And Hiromu too, obviously he's the leader of the division, will always be. And I think it's less boring when Hiromu doesn't just win on his first pass through to try to get the belt back, right? Yeah. So I think this was the right decision from a booking perspective. Also, maybe even if Eagles needs to go back to Australia or, whatever he needs to do right now, we're headed into G1 season, right? So we don't need the junior champ right now. So he can be gone for a little while until he maybe comes back for, what'll be in theory the Best of the Super Juniors tournament, which will set up Wrestle Kingdom and whatever's going to go on there. So they had the best match they could have given the circumstances. I think, Hiromu looks great. Robbie Eagles is, like I said, one of my favorite wrestlers on the planet right now. So I enjoyed the hell out of this. My hot take is this will probably land on at least my New Japan top 10 for the year. I loved, really, really, really liked this match. Yeah.
Yeah, just below that level for me, but still a really awesome match.
Yeah, and I know I don't do star ratings, so I go on what I think I'm gonna remember, right? And I think I'm gonna remember this match because I didn't expect Eagles to win.
Desperado came out afterwards to challenge Eagles to a rematch for the junior title. So I could see him winning the belt back before Best of Super Junior.
Yeah,
which would set Hiromu winning the tournament and then giving us the Hiromu Desperado title match at Wrestle Kingdom everybody's expecting.
What could they I guess they could do that power struggle.
Yeah.
Right, and then power struggle probably goes right into probably that combined tour again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Desperado offers to put the IWGP Junior Tag Titles on the line as well. So Eagles and Tiger Mask will be challenging for them. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Between matches 3 and 4, we got the G1 Climax blocks. We really don't have a lot of time to talk about them because we're getting close to 3 hours here, and we still I have questions too. So, but I'm going to quickly read through the blocks, and we can give our quick thoughts. A and B here. A was Kota Ibushi, Tetsuya Naito, Shingo Takagi, ZSJ, Toru Yano, Ishii, Yujiro, Kenta, Tonga Loa in his first ever G1, and Great Okan also in his first ever G1. B block, Okada, Tanahashi, Sanada, Taichi, Yoshihashi, Hiroki Goto, Jeff Cobb, Evil, Tama Tonga, and his first G1, Chase Owens. I mean, I don't know what people expected. If people are disappointed in these blocks, you haven't been paying attention to how things work right now in Japan, and they can't bring over people, and some of the people they can bring over don't want to come. So that's all it comes down to. My hot take is I am mildly excited to see what Tonga Loa can do here. I think at times he's looked very improved in the tag team, so I think he can surprise people. I'm very excited to see what Great Okan can do. I mean, he hasn't had a lot of singles matches in a while, and I think most people would probably agree with me that A is the more exciting block. I've seen some people say that A is way, way better than B. I don't even know if I agree with that. I mean, there's more of my favorites are in A, But like B still has like, Okada, Tanahashi, Sonata, Taichi, Yoshihashi had a good little G1 last year. Cobb's been good. Hiroki Goto's good. I mean, that's a lot of good wrestlers. I mean, yeah, Evil isn't great, and Tamatanga and Chase Owens aren't great, but I mean, there's still plenty of good wrestlers in B Block. So
yeah, my
Taichi was the MVP of G1 last year. Anyway, remember that debate? Taichi can do it again.
My take is that it's exactly what I expected.
Yeah.
The blocks are, I think, kind of as you alluded to, just more balanced than I thought the blocks were last year. And I think guys like Tangaloa, Chase Owens, Great Khan, I think anyone in their first G1 is gonna, booking aside, right? I don't know how these guys are gonna get booked, right? But I think that they understand the weight of that responsibility.
Tamatanga might bust his ass too, finally getting back.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
I hope they all do, but maybe they won't all. But, I know for a fact that a guy like Chase Owens, think of him what you will and his role with New Japan. But like, I know this is something this was a goal of his, and I think will take it pretty seriously. How that plays out, who knows, right? Like, I can't speak too highly of his in-ring work, but like, I know that he gets it. And I think that matters something.
Naito and Yujiro, by the way, they're going to have their first singles match in like 7 years.
Yeah, that's a fun wrinkle.
Yeah. Their last singles match was the 2014 G1. So, I mean, that's kind of cool. I mean, like, this is like ancient history probably because, Yujiro has been at such a lower level than Naito for so long in New Japan now. But, like, Yujiro has an 18-3 record against him. And it's still 5-3 if you throw out all their Young Lion matches where Yujiro, just was a more experienced Young Lion. So, of course, he won all those matches. But, Yujiro beat Naito in their last meeting in the 2014 G1. Naito has not beaten him since 2013. So those are interesting little notes. I mean, they used to be a tag team, obviously, Team No Limit. I think most people know that, but maybe some people don't anymore.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
So I am excited. I am maybe more excited for that than anything else in the G1.
I hope they do something with that.
Yeah,
just really give him a good match at least.
I mean, Naito will say shit about it. So
right.
I mean, he's not going to forget about that. Another little note, and I should note too. I'm going to have a full preview of the G1 next week on the Patreon during the middle of the week. So that I'm going to record probably sometime this weekend before I go on vacation. That'll go up for people. That'll be like the content.
How kind of New Japan to give us the lineups at least like. Because last year, we had like a 3-day turnaround on like the lineup to the tournament starting. So God bless them this year. What a group of nice people.
So that'll be going up on the Patreon next week. Patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. So I'll go into detail, all my picks, all my most excited matchups, all that stuff. I'm hoping the schedule will be out by the time I have to record.
Schedule should be soon.
Okay, so hopefully I'm gonna wait as long as I can, basically, for that. The other little note from the G1 Jam Project is doing the theme song, which is kind of cool. I mean, they're basically like an anti-song supergroup, so they've done a million anime theme songs between them. And besides that, in a wrestling note, they also did Dragon Storm, the original Dragon Gate theme song. So kind of a little wrestling tie-in there. Match number 3, IWGP Heavyweight Tag Title 3-Way. The Dangerous Tekkers defeat Naito and Sonata and Goto and Yoshihashi. Taichi pins Yoshihashi in at 26-43 with the Black Mephisto. This was a lot of fun. This was just all action. I mean, they just went a mile a minute here. Everybody's beating up everybody. The only thing that was kind of screwed up was Naito and Taichi. Two of my favorites, of course. They did kind of screw up a neck breaker somehow during one of the big runs, but what can you do? It happens. But yeah, there was some great stuff here. I mean, Sonata and Yoshihashi had a really fun exchange with some really close flash cradle near falls. And they went, Sonata kept going for skull end as well. And, he broke it himself to go for the moonsault, but then Taichi tagged himself in while Sonata was climbing. So the cover didn't actually count when he hit the moonsault because he was no longer the legal man. It was like, only 2 guys are legal at a time, not like a guy from each team was legal. And, they just like did not, even though they're only two quote unquote legal men at the time, everybody was doing moves on each other. It was an awesome spot fest, I thought. And Zach managed to keep Naito occupied at the end while Taichi hit the Black Mephisto on Yoshihashi for the pin. Some of the three-way tropes and stuff like that limit it, but I thought the Taichi blind tag spot was really clever, and I went like 4 stars on this. I had quite a blast with it, but I also just like everyone in this match a lot, so I could see people being lower on it than me. But these are 6 guys I like quite a bit, so I had a good time.
Yeah, I thought this was fun. I couldn't get really into it because I wasn't really sure why this was a 3-way tag match. I need reasoning, I guess, and like it was just kind of like, well, we're here, and we, so like, well, especially with like Goto and Yoshihashi, like you didn't. I know they didn't want to run back, the LIJ Suzuki-gun thing again, so they just added the 3rd team. So I was kind of like, obviously this was going to be a fun match and a good match and a fun match to watch, because I think similar to you, I think I like the Zack Sabre Jr., the Dangerous Tekkers team more than some, and I don't mind when the matches devolve into kind of a tornado tag, but overall,
I will say I said that made this point before. It makes no sense to me when like Young Buck fans complain about that.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. Not pretty much, it's exactly the same thing. But yeah, so I enjoyed the match, but the booking didn't make any sense to me, and I have no idea where tag team titles go from here, but I guess they don't need to figure that out. They'll probably set something up through the G1.
Yeah. The post match I thought was very funny because Yoshi would like end up on the floor. Taichi like went over the ropes and then started sarcastically clapping for him, which was like so mean, but it was really fun because he had told Yoshihashi like throughout this build that he had no chance, and he ended up pinning him. So he proved himself right, I guess.
Yeah,
it's just a very funny moment. And then Naito walks by and just stomps on Yoshihashi in anger for getting pinned and ending the match. And then Goto immediately attacks him over that, which that all very funny stuff. And these are 6 guys I could watch interact with each other forever. So I really enjoyed the post match. Match number 2 for the IWGP Junior Tag Titles: Desperado and Kanemaru defeat Ishimori and Phantasmo to become the 67 champions. 2028, Desperado once again pins Phantasmo with the Pinche logo. What feels like the 1,000th time. Honestly. I don't know. I didn't love this. I didn't think it was bad or anything. I went 3 stars. I thought it was fine. Just, I don't really care about the loaded boot and whiskey bottle and all that stuff. It just felt like it took a long time to get to where they were going, and what they were going was not that exciting. I definitely don't care about all the loaded boot saga. So, just this was fine. 3 stars.
I just don't really get the title change when the Bullet Club team's coming over to America, and they could have done some cool defenses.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was surprised by it at least, but also, I don't know. Those titles just bounce between now 2 teams. Because
they had their match they wanted to do with Desperado, I guess, against Eagle
to set up. Titles, I'm sure to set up more with them. So
the opener on the main card was Okada and Ishii. I'm sorry, losing to Cobb and Great Okan. Okan pinning Ishii in 12:45 of the Eliminator. So big win for Okan here. I thought this was quite a bit of fun. Nothing like super special or anything, but for a basic tag opener, I thought it was fun. Okada got a chance to really run wild with drop kicks on both guys. And then Ishii and Okan, I thought, had a pretty fun exchange before Okan put him away with the pin, which is a big win for him. So I went 3 1/4 here. Thought both teams look good, and I hope Okan really gets a chance to shine in the G1.
And I hope that Okan and Cobb are the next big tag team.
That'd be cool.
If they're not going to both get super involved in single stuff, if they could just run over World Tag League and just win the belts. They've been so good this year, statistically and in the ring for that matter. But that's a fun duo, and they're dominating. I mean, like, it's incredible. So, would be really fun to see them get a run with it.
The pre-show match from Stardom again. This was even better than the first night one. This was Julia and Sayuri defeating Watanabe and Kamitani. Sayuri pinning Kamitani in 11:31 with the Byakko. I thought this match was great. I mean, Syuri looked like a badass. She was like nearly breaking Momo's arm with a Kimura and then just kicking the shit out of Saya Kamitani at one point. And then Saya came back with a very nice reverse Rana, only to run into like a counter high kick for a very close near fall. I mean, you could tell these 4 girls were like really going out there just to like put on a great match, and I think they succeeded. Syuri put Saya in the stretch muffler. That's the Byakko, and she had no choice but to tap. I almost considered going 4 stars flat on this. It was just all action. I decided to go 3 3/4, and you could tell, like I said, they all wanted to make an impression, and they definitely succeeded. So very good for them there.
Yeah, I love the pace of these matches. I truly do hope they do more of these. So it's really, really a cool feature of some of these bigger New Japan shows.
All right, so we got 2 seconds to get through these questions. So let me say, at Armantha1 on Twitter. Okay, so I asked for New Japan and AEW questions. He asked 2 DDT questions. So I'll try to go through them very quickly. But so Damnation broke up. That's a very big story in DDT. That's basically, their top heel unit. And Armantha just says, what do you think the fallout will be of their disbandment? Face turn for Endo. Sasaki immediately creating the Not Damnation faction and feuding with Takagi. Also, who out of Damnation would make the best 4th member for Eruption? Well, if Sasaki did that, you know what that would remind? They could do that as a callback for. I don't. This probably is. I'm not trying to say this to sound like an elitist, but this is probably a little before your time with New Japan. But when Riki Choshu took over New Japan, I think at the mid to late 2000s at this point, when he came back as booker for one of his many booking runs, the first thing he did was he broke up Black New Japan, which was Masahiro Chono's very dominant heel stable at the time. And Chono decided he was so mad at Choshu, he was going to create the anti-Choshu army. And he basically just took all the members of Black New Japan and made them the anti-Choshu army. So yes, you could just have Sasaki should just immediately create the anti-Shinshiro Takagi army to protest the tournament they were put in by Shinshiro Takagi. That would be pretty funny. But I really have no idea where this is going. Honestly, I don't know what they're doing here. I assume there will be some kind of new heel stable, and Sasaki will probably lead it. But maybe they just want to, mix up the members and have Endo go babyface again, like Armantha said. So that would not surprise me. Armantha, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I'm sorry. Says, who out of Damnation would make the best 4th member for Eruption? It's a good question. I think Soma Takao would work. Very, stoic. So I think he would fit in well with the stable. Okay, the rest of these are all New Japan or AEWs. Let's see. Guy Yeager says, if you could have your nuts redeemed by any member of the AEW or New Japan roster, who would it be? Now, is the nuts redeeming not getting a low blow? Why would I want anyone to give me a low blow? Do you want anyone to give you a low blow, Chris?
No.
I don't want anyone either.
Bad.
It sounds bad.
It's been a long time since I've gotten a low blow.
Me too. So I'm going to say NA, not applicable. At Ewan WCX, if you could ask Tony Khan a media call question that had some bite, what would it be? This is a very interesting question. What do you think, Chris? Anything? You don't have to worry about being banned. You're never going to come back for a media call again. That's what I assume he's implying here.
Right. I don't know, because to his credit, Tony Khan is pretty candid. And he's also just very good at answering those media call questions.
Although if you call the AT&T shuttle Midgard Belt, he's going to be very upset.
So don't do that.
I know the guy who did that. Like we used to work together at GameStop. I felt so bad when I heard about that. I mean, Joe's a very good guy. And I was like, oh boy, Joe Rivera, that's his name. And it was not Joe Lanza. But yeah, I felt bad for him.
Yeah. So to be perfectly honest, like, he's so good at those pressers that, like, I don't know that's, or the media calls or whatever they are. I don't know that there's a question that you could ask that would get a good answer, that he won't answer. You know what I mean? Or like something with, I don't know that he doesn't, that's not the purpose of those. Those are public relations calls. Those aren't expose type calls. So I guess putting myself in that situation, you have to know the audience and kind of know what you're working with. So like, I wouldn't ask anything, about that. But obviously the thing that's most front of mind for me is how how do you see the New Japan relationship progressing? And what can it mean for his business? Because that's what matters to him. He's altruistic in a way, in the sense that he wants pro wrestling to be greater than it is right now. But ultimately, what that dude's going to care about is his business. So how does he see the big relationship with New Japan growing and benefiting both sides? But specifically, how can that relationship in Japan benefit him, and where does he see that going? That would be the question that I would love to hear his answer on. And maybe he would give some sort of answer, but I would love to hear like the real deal answer of what he sees post-pandemic open travel situation, and what that looks like for him ideally.
I mean, honestly, I would love to know, and this is obviously not, it would be a very awkward topic, and I don't know if he would love to answer it, but they have said they did internal investigations into the Darby Allin allegations, and I believe the allegations against Justin Roberts, and I guess cleared them. I would just love to know what like the process was, what, how they cleared them, like what like who reviewed it, like pretty much there's no transparency with that at all. And I think that would go a long way towards, not having the situation we're in now, where it's just kind of like a cloud that hangs over Darby, especially on social media. So, I would like to know like what, I mean, I'm not trying to say it shouldn't, like those are serious allegations. So, I would like to hear like what the company actually went through when, to supposedly clear him. Because it just kind of we've just vaguely heard that he cleared Darby without really any explanation other than that. So the last two questions we have here were both from Discord. Dominator Dance Enthusiast, great name, says, "Hi John, now that AEW has its cornerstone in Adam Cole, what other guys do you think will round out their new minis division?" I don't know. There's a lot of good minis out there. What do you think, Chris?
I didn't think about this one. I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Marco.
Marco, there you go. I mean,
he's already on the roster.
Marco.
Maybe he can wrestle.
Yeah. And then Rika Tatsumi says, based on the G1 blocks, what main event do you think they will put for Power Struggle? That's a great question, because it's like you have to predict the main event, like who's going to win the G1 and all that.
Well, you have to. You ultimately have to predict. Who's going to win the G1, because that's not the main event, and then who else is going to beat Shingo. So
Shingo, Naito's in his block. It could be Naito. Naito could beat him and then get the title shot.
Mm-hmm.
It could be Ibushi. Ibushi's in his block, and they still never did the match. The dark horse would be Kenta. I mean, he's definitely, he's a heel, and he's definitely can be presented at that level. So I think those are the three most likely challengers for Shingo at Power Struggle. I think I would go Ibushi 1, because I think they still need to get back to that match. Naito 2, Kenta 3. I think those are my 3.
Yeah, I'd say Ibushi, because I think they save another match with Naito for something bigger.
Yeah, it could be a Wrestle Kingdom match with these 3 nights.
Could certainly be one of 3 Wrestle Kingdoms.
All right, so we went over 3 hours. Not even just, we usually only go 3 hours on the show, but we had a lot to talk about this week. So Chris, give us some plugs and we'll wrap this up.
Sure, you can find me on Twitter at the Chris Samsa. My website is sportofprowrestling.com, which is pretty much going to turn into a G1 takeover here in a couple of weeks, or not even a couple of weeks. All my G1 coverage will be there. And I think I'm going to do daily preview audio again this year on the Voices of Wrestling Network. That's the tentative plan. I'm looking at the schedule to see if I can do a little less than daily. See if I can just do like every other night, if it makes sense. But either way, I think I'm going to do daily or, audio previews for every G1 card. And I think that'll be how I get back into the solo audio game. So that's what I'm up to.
All right. So folks, of course, you can follow us at Wrestle Omakase, Wrestling When I'm Fit. Follow us on Twitter, I should say. And next week on the Patreon exclusive episode, we will talk about the opening night of the Noah N1 victory, as well as the All Japan September 7th Korakuen. I do not have a guest yet for that, so I'll let you know who that will be. Just haven't gotten around to picking one yet, so or asking somebody. But yes, the two of us, whoever it is, being this other person, will review the Noah and All Japan show. So that will be exclusive to Patreon. The next time you hear me on the free feed, I do have a guest for that, oddly enough. That'll be in 2 weeks, and that'll be the first 2 nights of the G1 plus nights 2 and 3 of the N1 with Harley Duncan from Voices of Wrestling. So he'll be on to break down the opening nights of the G1 and nights 2 and 3 of the N1 on September 19th. So there you go. In the meantime, I want to thank you as always for listening, and I will see you next time.
Gym sessions and sweaty summer activities are back, which means more funky smells in your clothes because sweat leaves behind bacteria that causes those hard-to-remove odors. Clorox fabric sanitizer products are ready to zap the stink out of fabrics in your home by getting rid of 99.9% of odor-causing bacteria. Eliminate odors in every load or sanitize fabrics between washes with one of our fabric sanitizer products. Search fabric sanitizer at Clorox.com to learn more. When it counts, trust Clorox. Use as directed.
Own the road with T-Mobile, the leader in 5G. Whether you're cruising through Nashville on I-40, heading down I-90 to Boston, or touring Santa Cruz in the 5, you'll be covered by the largest 5G network. T-Mobile covers the most interstate highway miles in America with 5G.
See 5G device coverage and access details at T-Mobile.com. Most reliable according to independent third-party Umlaut from crowdsourced user experience data from January to July 2021. Fastest according to Open Signal Awards based on average speeds in USA. 5G user experience report July 2021.